And we are rolling. All right. What's up, Jess? Thank you for meeting me for this conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
So, just a little disclaimer for the audience listening. I was late night scrolling Instagram last night, and I found like a UFO page I follow, one of like the million. And for some reason, I never read comments ever. Just for you too, I never read comments. But something I was like, I'm just gonna check these comments. I don't even remember what the post was about. I just remember I was like, I gotta
Yeah,
look at these comments. So I check it out, and I see you commented something along the lines of how you live near Groom Lake, or which is Area 51. That vicinity, you said, I believe you said you had a ranch over in that area. You and your family. So I was like, okay, I gotta take the shot with this one, and you happily accepted, which I'm very gracious for and appreciative. So
yeah,
that's how we kind of got this rolling here for everyone listening, at least.
yeah, pretty much. That's it. And I was really excited when you reached out because I'm always like down to talk about this stuff. It seems like there's not too many people that I can reach out and talk to about this kind of thing. So it's always exciting when somebody is actually interested in hearing what you saw instead of like gaslighting you and being like, nah, that didn't happen. So
Yeah,
exciting.
I think that's a reoccurring problem in a lot of areas of society, but especially when it comes to like supernatural type of things. You know, like when ghost aliens, anything like that. People always want to go to like the sensical realization, but it's like, man, sometimes the sensical thing is what you actually saw opposed to what you can fabricate in your mind. You know what I mean? And yeah,
Yeah,
it's very bizarre.
yeah. Well, and that's another thing too about like living. And I don't particularly live on the ranch, but I grew up going there every single year. You know what I mean? And
Gotcha.
my family lives there. So when you see it over and over again, that's when it becomes more logical to trust that you're seeing what you're seeing rather than that you're not. So yeah, we've had lots of different instances where we've seen just basically UFOs. And so I looked up just before I got on this podcast with you, like the model, the Heinbu. Like I was just like, I don't even know a lot about UFO stuff, but the Heinview one, it's like what the Germans were first like supposedly re-engineering,
Yep, reverse
and
engineering and
that's
shit.
the reverse engineering. Yeah, that was the first thing that popped up that I was like, oh, that's what I saw. So I guess just keep that in mind. Like that's kind of what we were seeing out there on the ranch. But
Can you give me one sec,
um,
real quick? Anyone who's wondering about any images or anything like that, after this is all said and done, before I post this on my Instagram, on the official Instagram account, I'll post a slideshow of images of any ships or crafts we referred to or anything like that. So if you don't want to Google or whatnot, just check out the Instagram page. The link will be in the bio. But carry on. I didn't
yeah,
mean to try. I just
yeah,
want to just for the whole video, if
yeah,
anyone wants to
totally.
see what we're referring to or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's just your typical, like what you would picture like a UFO. Like it's just, undeniably like, oh, that's like an alien UFO. And yeah, so I think I just wanted to share. So my grandpa's dad, so my great grandpa, he grew up on the ranch, and um, just his entire life, he's been seeing these UFOs. And this goes back to like the, 60s, 50s. So from that time all the way up till now, we are still seeing UFOs. So this is like very active. Again, this is like Nevada area, so it's by Area 51, and he's had so many encounters that he actually started. My great grandpa, he actually started like chasing these things. So he would get on his horse, little like cowboy, and literally he would chase them on average for about 5 minutes, and they would always stay about 100 feet away from him, and they would actually hover pretty close to the ground. And it's almost like they were like playing with him because they would let him chase them for a while, and then I guess after about 5 minutes on average, they would just kind of sayonara, and just like the way he describes it is they would like just go up into the sky and like leave. So that's been a thing. And then personally, so I went down to the ranch just last year, and I'm actually going back in April, so that should be exciting. But the last time I was there, my boyfriend and I, we went on a little night hike, and we saw this like gold glowing light, like in the middle of nowhere, and it's a desert, so there's no one out there. It's just us, and we're just staring at this light, and we're like, oh, what if that's a UFO? Like hopeful, and then it just kind of came down, and it was about 70 to 100 feet away from us, and then it was hovering like maybe 50 feet off the ground. And again, it was just like your typical like UFO, Heinbu one, whatever looking thing. It was really dark, but it just kind of watched us, and we just sat there and watched it for an hour, maybe 2 hours, because we were just like
Wow.
amazed. Yeah, it was crazy because it was like it was actually like watching us.
So
Yeah.
you and your boyfriend are hiking at night, and I just want to get a quick picture here. So you hiking at night, you end up stumbling upon a ball of light in the sky. You said like a that's what you initially saw before the UFO itself.
Yeah, so I'm going to be completely honest. I don't exactly remember what we first saw,
Okay.
but I do know that we went out, and I believe it was just like a gold light that we were like, is that a plane? Like, is that, it's a little bit close. And I have experience with drones. That's a whole nother story. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen a lot of drones, but it was big, it was bigger. Um, and yeah, and then we just kind of were like standing there waiting. So my boyfriend and I, of course, we jumped to like, it's aliens. We want to telepathically talk to it. We're going to sit here and like try to communicate with it. And that's when it started to like come down and actually just hovered. And the other crazy thing about this too is this thing just like parked like in the sky. You know what I mean? Like it literally just like put on its brakes and was just like watching us.
Yeah.
So, and it was like an hour or two because we were just amazed. And finally I was like, okay, dude, I got to go to bed. But yeah,
Jesus.
so.
And
Yeah.
what was how far away were you from it when it started kind of like just stationary hovering? Like,
So we were not that far. It kept a safe distance, but it was like, I want to say it was like 70 feet away from us,
wow.
maybe. Yeah. And then it hovered above the ground like 50 feet. So it literally was just like coming to watch us. Like it just sat. And it's not like my first time with these things. It's not my boyfriend's first time with these things. I don't know. So, but it was interesting because when, I told my uncle about it the next day, he's not even surprised at all. He's like, oh yeah, like they're here. We always see them there, and they get curious. So yeah.
Any specific, like, I know you said it's kind of a shaky memory. Any specifics like markings or indicatings on the craft itself that you were able to distinguish, or was it just too dark or whatnot, or any detail at all like that you can recall?
So it was like metallic black, like it was black, I think. It was really dark. But the main thing is that it had this gold light that was, first off, the light didn't seem like futuristic. Like you picture like a UFO and you're thinking like fluorescent or whatever, like maybe a laser or something. It literally looked like just like almost like a lighthouse light, except it was just gold. And it was so bright that it just like shined on us, and it was kind of like so bright that it made it hard to see the craft itself. But I am like a cute little dweeb, so I actually drew a picture.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'll just show like the screen. But it was kind of like, let's see. I don't know if you can see that. You see that?
Yep, that's clear as hell. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So it was like, that's what it looked like. It's, yeah.
And it had those little like slits around the bottom on the picture and whatnot.
So from what I could feel from looking at it in the dark and like the dimensions of it, it did seem like it had those slits. I can't, like, I'm not positive, but yeah. So that's why when I was like, look.
So
yeah.
I just assume in Nevada nighttime, you're probably lucky to see anything. I assume you're in the middle of kind of just the wilderness at that point, in the middle of the nowhere, and probably no streetlights and whatnot. So anyone listening, anyone like, oh, why didn't you see? I guarantee you, if you're in the same spot, you probably wouldn't see much detail, just how I'm picturing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's like I looked up like pictures because I'm like, and I can directly point out like, oh yeah, that's the Heimbu one or whatever. Like that's what I saw. But yeah, so that's just completely common on that ranch. We're right next to Area 51, I guess. And I never noticed that as a kid, but yeah.
Now, does the picture and what you and your boyfriend saw, does it correlate with any other previous sightings that you or your family have ever experienced, like detail wise or shape wise or whatnot?
So this one was a little bit unique. My boyfriend in particular, he used to see a ton in Florida. which like, and this is a total like side thought, but it to me, like, it's interesting to me that like Florida is like one of the biggest spots for like human trafficking,
Yeah.
because I mean, they're cited there just 24/7. It's just casual for like these Floridians, especially on the coast. But he kind of described them as like more like discs, and then they had like multicolored lights.
Mm.
But this one in particular seemed like almost old. Like it's like I'm saying, like the gold light on it was nothing about it seemed futuristic, except for the fact that it could literally like park in the air. Like it just like stopped.
So
So yeah.
it was like the iPhone 8 of UFOs, basically. Like it was a little outdated version of itself and whatnot, comparatively
I
speaking.
like yeah, no, honestly, like I feel like this was like an iPhone 4, like this
Okay,
one.
yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, that's crazy, man. That's so
Yeah.
crazy. Now, honestly,
Oh yeah.
go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say I forgot to add in the story too. So about the time that I was like, okay, dude, like I'm tired, like I'm going to bed. So we start to like walk down. Like as we're like walking down, in literally like a second, like I'm saying like 1 second, it was on the other side of the valley. So I'm talking like miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept using the word teleportation, and my boyfriend would be like, well, you know, they work at like hyper speeds, but it's not teleportation. But like it definitely looked like teleportation, because in 1 second it was like just miles and miles and miles away across the valley. So that was also cool.
Obviously, that connects to many UFO sightings, like what you're saying, the vast distances. One that comes off the top of my head is the Tic Tac with Commander Fravor off the coast of California. That
I was
thing.
thinking of that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just textbook basically what that is. We can go into depth with that later. Right now, I want to stick with your personal stories for now, because this is like I can sit down and talk about UFOs with anybody, but not everybody has actual experiences. Maybe someone that was like, oh, I saw something one time in the woods, but for you, it's like
Yeah.
you are in a vicinity that is literally correlated to Groom Lake. Right past an airport. Like you're in the epicenter of kind of where shit is known to go down. For everyone knows Area 51, but quick little lesson. It's made in the 50s, I believe. I think it was 55 that the U.S. Air Force established the base there. It was top secret. It still is top secret. You go there, you get arrested or whatnot. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
It really broke headlines. And if anyone knows the story, please forgive me. It broke headlines in the 80s, primarily when Bob Lazar, a chemist, was contracted to work in a S4 sector of Area 51, and basically he was paid and hired to reverse engineer extraterrestrial crafts. And he broke the story basically with this guy George Knapp, and that's how everyone knows about Area 51 more or less. So anyone just thinking like, oh, like yeah, it could just be an Air Force base. It could be, but there is 40 plus years, even before there was sightings of UFOs, but 40 plus years of lineage of stories and personal accounts of people
Yeah.
claiming these types of things. So it's
Well,
holds merit.
yeah, exactly. It's like this is not just like oh, I went out to this Nevada desert with my boyfriend and we saw a UFO and it was incredible. It's like, no, this is like passed down from my family. Like my great grandpa just saw them and would chase after them on his horse, and my grandpa has seen them, my uncles have all seen them. Like my mom grew up with the stories, and then to go there myself and to still see one, it's incredible. But I just had a crazy thought. Oh my gosh.
Throw it
Well,
out there.
I'm tripping. Dude, I'm tripping. I literally just thought of this. I'm tripping because I'm like saying how like, what the fuck? I'm tripping. So I'm saying how like this is passed down from my family and how we've all seen them, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And I'm thinking to myself, who was there at this reunion and who brought up even the topic of aliens, right? And so that was my uncle Dave, and he was like close friends with people who worked within Area 51 because he lives by there. And so he has incredible stories where it's like he had somebody who worked there. They're like, I'm not allowed to say anything, but they left apparently like a giant poster full of like autographs from pilots of these crafts. And so my uncle was able to because she's like, I'm not allowed to say anything, like left, but my uncle was able to come in and literally like see the names of these pilots. So the idea that I had, and this is totally, I don't believe this at all, but it was a wild thought. So we're at this ranch in the middle of the desert, and we had just pulled, my boyfriend and I, this like horrible prank on the 10-year-old boys, right? Like our cousins and my brother. So we gathered like a bunch of bones and we scattered it across their camp, and we were like, it's the Bone Man. And like, anyway, so we were just being awful, you know? So that night we went on this night hike, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, what if that was my uncle? Like, what are the odds that like a craft literally came down? That's so far out there, and I don't believe that, but that was tripping me out because like he's had all these close connections. It's like, who's to say, like what does Uncle Dave do? You know, like what if he works for Area 51 and he's like literally fucking with us? Like he's like, I don't know.
The little mystique behind it, yeah, that would be.
Yeah,
I'd be pissed at Uncle
cool.
Dave if that was me. That would be an awkward family reunion next time I saw his ass. I'd be on him, bro.
Dude, I don't know. I think that would be awesome, but I don't think that's what happened.
I mean, man, that makes equally as much sense as UFOs do in general. So anything in this topic makes equally as much sense as any idea anyone can think of. I mean, this topic is so ridiculously mind blowing, and it's like people can speculate like they know things, but man, if there's actually legitimate crafts that can travel through space in the matter of minutes, seconds, weeks, opposed to light, dude, nothing makes sense. It does not make sense.
Yeah.
So we have to throw all rationale out of the window with this whole topic. We have to speculate sometimes because it's the only way to get things going.
Yeah, absolutely, totally.
Now, when you said that thing about the bones, though, I was about to say, I was like, you're talking about UFOs, you're about to have some skinwalkers on you now, too, with the bones and stuff like that. You about to have some spirits pissed off.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I was thinking that actually. Like we were like, as we're collecting these bones, like totally like scare the crap out of these kids. We're like, dude, we're gonna get cursed. Like this is sacred land. It's literally like we're next to like a reservation and stuff. But totally, yeah. And that's a whole nother thing. Like skinwalkers. I'm all about that stuff too. Absolutely.
Hell yeah, we can definitely get into that too. I find that stuff interesting. I know a lot less about that type of thing than UFOs, just to be honest. But I'd love to discuss it nonetheless. So obviously you you're saying that claim it sound like I was like putting you under pressure. You're saying that like your family has a lineage of seeing the crafts and whatnot. Is it always spherical shapes, or is it ever cigar shape? Is it ever the triangle, the cubes? Is it always kind of the symmetrical ones that we kind of think of traditionally?
So from what I've heard, and there are like diary entries from like the 50s and 60s that I could probably look into and get more specific on. But from what I've heard, they are specifically more of the typical UFO, what's like that design I was talking about earlier, the German, the original German.
With the eggs on top type of thing. That's how I always describe it.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah.
So they're more traditional.
Yeah, that correlates to whatever Bob Lazar says. I'm holding his name like it's a testimony or something, like it's in the Bible. But
Bob Lazar is a testimony.
Yeah, I agree. People don't like the guy, but listen, I'm a big fan of Lazar.
No, I use the hashtag Bob Lazar's daddy. That's like my favorite. I love that man.
Yeah, that's a guy right there. Crazy story too. If you guys don't know the actual story and everything of Bob Lazar, dude, you gotta watch his documentary called Bob Lazar Area 51 Flying Saucer or something like that. Something along those lines. Just look at him on Rogan or something like that and go from there and then do a deep dive because man, that man's freaking interesting.
Yeah, he knows.
Oh yeah,
he knows what's going on.
Because people. I don't mean to derail. I'm sorry. I digress, as I told you before. People want to come at Lazar like he was like not credited and not like knowledgeable in the fields. That guy built a laser gun. He built a super engine car just for fun. You know what I mean? Like he discovered and predicted an element that wasn't on the periodic table for decades. So that right there, he's validated in my book. He had knowledge no one else had.
Well, absolutely, and it's like what you're saying. It's like people like to say that it's more logical to deny these things because that's the logical thing. But when you start seeing enough evidence like this, like in Bob Lazar's case, or even like speculatively like my family's case, where it's happening to every single person through their time living on that ranch, it's like, before you know it, it's actually more illogical to deny what you're seeing. And so it's interesting that people will say you're living in a fantasy when in reality it's like I'm keeping record and account of the things that I am seeing. And like, to me, that's logical. And to me, it's a fantasy to deny what I'm seeing, even if it blows my mind, even if I can't understand it. So.
What was the initial thought, if you might know, when your family first started seeing these crafts? Was the initial thought like, oh, what am I seeing? Was it, this is nonsense? It's just it's Air Force related vehicles, or was it instantly like, holy shit, that's a UFO?
So it'd be hard to say what my great grandpa was thinking, although like, again, like he does have like those journal entries that, I wish so bad I had right now, because I'd be able to get into his mind and see exactly what he did think. I would think that, there's not a lot of logical thoughts that can go on for like a rancher in the 50s to think when they see something like that, unless they've thoroughly studied German engineering, you know what I mean? And like are into the conspiracy of airspace and all that stuff. So I don't know for sure what he was thinking. I know that my uncles were definitely hopeful that they were aliens, but we're definitely leaning more on the side that they are alien craft, but they have been, I would say the word wrong. I'm like re-engineered. What's that?
Reverse.
Yeah, they've reverse engineers. Thank you.
All words are made up. Don't worry about it. All words.
Exactly. But so yeah, no, it's like they are definitely not from this planet. I think everybody in my family agrees with that. The pilots, we are all pretty much under the conclusion that they're all human, they're government. But what's interesting to me is that they tend to kind of mess with us. Like, it seems like whenever they almost want to show themselves. Like, they almost want to, and that's weird to me. Like, I'm picturing this guy driving this craft sitting in there with like coffee, just like watching us, just like, like, like what, why is he just like, we sat there for 2 hours just watching us. So
yeah, that's the thing. If it's a human pilot, that is very bizarre that he would go out of his way to do that. I mean, I feel like the Air Force alone would be like, hey, Jeff, what the hell are you doing? It's been 2 hours, buddy.
Yeah.
Very bizarre. Very bizarre.
Well, it's like, why would humans be watching us? They know that it's our ranch. So it's weird because I'm always taking the side of like, it's an alien. And in this circumstance, I'm like, oh no, like these are humans. I don't know, man. Because again, it did feel like, and this is like really out there, but it felt like it was like telepathically connected to us or something, because we were asking it to come down and it came down and watched us for like 2 hours. So yeah.
See, I'm gonna throw something absolutely nuts out there, and half the people watching are gonna shut this off after I say this. What if, like, this is a big what if? So obviously there's a history of people saying, UFOs and the crafts and the beings on board can be telepathically connected. Stephen Greer's huge into that with the collective meditation retreats and whatnot. What if it is again, big what if? So what if it's run by the U.S. Air Force? What if it's an actual human in there? And I don't know if you're familiar with Project Bluebeam, along those lines. Yeah. Okay, so what if it's a Bluebeam type of scenario where, they're kind of working their way up to exposure. Maybe it's a fake stage exposure, which I tend to believe is going to happen more than the latter two. They have to kind of collect the reaction of civilians, whatnot, in isolated areas. You do it over New York or Los Angeles. Historically, it's not going to end well. Battle of Los Angeles, UFOs in the dogfight over D.C. People on a mass group tend to react very hysterically. I think they have a lot of evidence and research behind those, if those were human-related incidents opposed to extraterrestrial. So what if every now and again, the Betty and Barney Hill abduction story, for instance, what's the lumberjack guy name? I can't think of his name. There's a famous lumberjack who got abducted in the middle of a camp. So what if they kind of do these types of, again, big what if, or do these situations to kind of collect the psyche reaction to seeing these ships, see what the actual reaction of one-on-one interactions are with people opposed to mass groups.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a totally valid, interesting point, because to be honest, that was the mood. Yeah. Like if I'm being as honest as possible, like the way that it like actually came down and then it kept its distance, but it like just waited and watched, like it waited to see what we would do. And like of course, like we're not going anywhere. I'm so big into the paranormal and aliens and all of this stuff that I'm like, I'm going to say, I was scared though. I will say it's interesting because I'm kind of, I won't say I'm all bark, no bite. I have some bite, but in that moment, it's like my boyfriend was kind of more like, come out, like let's, we want to talk, whatever. And I was kind of like, I'm going to shit my pants. Like this is crazy.
Oh, he was telling the beings on board to come out. Dude,
yeah,
listen, I'm all about that, but I'd be out. I would be out of there if I saw a little man walk out of a craft.
So like even just seeing the UFO, seeing something like so close to you park in the air, like I keep emphasizing like it parked in the air, even just seeing that, it goes against everything that I've learned and been taught and have seen, to the point that like I felt like I was hollow, like I was just standing there. Just so it's interesting when you're like, maybe they're studying human reaction, like that's a big maybe, like what if? It's like it's totally possible, because even though I wanted it, I was having a hard time accepting it. It's a lot.
It is a lot. I'm just thinking from the perspective of there is a ridiculous amount of evidence through freedom of information and through whistleblowers of just the government, different sects of the government, looking into the psyche and the psychology and subconscious mind of humans, especially in America. So it's like, I've ranted about MK Ultra at least once a week on a podcast, so I'm not going to go into it right now. But the MK Ultra thing, for instance, I mean, that was, on paper, it was 22 years of advanced, ridiculous murder, manipulation, and torture of people to brutally break the subconscious and reprogram it. I mean, we could get into it if we want 3-hour conversation about it, we could, because I can go literally all day. But they'll do this stuff. That's my point. Is there's not like, this isn't like coming out of, there's no basis behind what I'm saying. It's like they're willing to do stuff.
But there is though, there is though, and like that's another thing too. Is like I feel like I come across so many people who are like, why would they care about that? Why would they be interested in that? Like that's so unrealistic. And it's like this people, I don't know. It's like they don't realize the power of like, if you can understand like the individual and like the psychology behind that, the subconscious mind, then you can understand the masses, because we're all pretty much the same. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I mean, to a certain degree, but yeah. So I think they're absolutely studying that. And I was looking into that MK Ultra, like, training people to unconsciously murder, and people think that this stuff is conspiracy theory, and you can look it up. Like it's that's such a broad, like you can look it up.
Yeah.
But
if you guys want specific examples, look into Sidney Gottlieb, Jolly West, and Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron. Those 3 names alone, I swear to God, you will have your mind blown. You can read a book called Chaos by Tom O'Neill. I mean, this is very crazy, folks. They were making Manchurian candidates. They were killing and drugging and torturing psycho patients. What's it called? I can't think of the word. Mental patients. Sorry about that. Mental patients. I don't know how that just slipped my mind. Mental patients. They were giving prostitutes LSD to give to random people. Charles Manson was involved. Ted Kaczynski, Whitey Bulger.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so crazy, and it seems to be never ending. So long story short, your government will do tests on you to find out things about your mind. It's a very big fact. It goes back to Bernays in the 30s. The father of propaganda, who was relatives with Sigmund Freud, who was the father of the subconscious mind. I'm really into psychology, so I love Freud, but holy shit, when I found out him and Bernays were connected, I was like, that's a harsh awakening right there.
Well, and isn't like just something like the creator of Netflix is
Mark
like his
something
was like his dad or something was like a literal Nazi, and they're like, Jesus. Yeah, I mean. You'll have to check that. Don't take my word for it. But I mean, you look into
do your own research.
Yeah. Oh, I know, right? Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So they're definitely testing us, and so I wanted to mention as well, just before like we moved on from the topic of UFOs, if we do or whatever. My aunt, she's not a big believer in this stuff. And I think it's interesting also that sometimes people will completely shut down when they talk about aliens or like UFOs or things like that, because I understand somebody not believing in it. But what I've come to see is kind of common is people literally putting up a wall. And it's almost like completely out of fear. And for me, I'm wondering if like that was some type of subconscious programming, or if they have like literal trauma, like who knows. But my aunt, for example, she does not believe in aliens. She doesn't believe in stuff like this. She's open-minded, but she, when she was a child in her car driving across Arizona, because that's typically where like I am, where my family is, where like the Arizona, Nevada, Utah strip. So we're in the middle of like butt fuck nowhere, the desert. And she was driving across the strip, and there was a UFO that came and just air parked, but drove with them by the window. So it just was by her window driving with them. So everybody in the car witnessed that. And it's just at that point undeniable. And it is interesting, again, like why they're trying to show themselves off, because they kind of are. Yeah.
I feel like that's the $1 trillion question, is like, why do they do these things? If it is ET related opposed to human, like why? Because it's undeniable that humans have crafts. I mean, they do. I mean, the Pentagon has admitted to it. You can go on New York Times, terrible newspaper, but for the masses, it's very credible. They'll admit that the government has crashes that they have no recollection of where they came from, not of this world. But the distinction is it actually ET, or is everything we're seeing mankind? And it's like, if it is mankind, again, why? ET seems to make more sense in a way, because it's like...
ET makes more sense.
Yeah, but it splinters, because it's like, okay, are they part of our evolutionary growth? Are they modern? Are we kind of just like a lab rat society? Is Earth much more important than we kind of realize, and they're kind of monitoring the survivability of it? Because obviously the spike in UFO sightings ramped up post Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Just historically, that's when the UFOs really just exploded. No pun intended. I didn't even mean to make that. That was a mean joke. That was a bad taste, folks, and I apologize.
It was not intentional.
No. It wasn't intentional. Like they dropped a bomb on innocent people. That was intentional. What I said was not.
Oh my gosh.
But it's just very bizarre, because you see the direct correlation there, and it's I had something else going. I just completely lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. No
That's
idea
okay.
where I was going with that.
Yeah.
So your aunt you said it was your aunt, correct? Right? Who saw
I mean, it was all of my aunts, but I mean, one of my aunts told me the story, but it was like there were like 5 people in the car that witnessed it happening. And so again, it's like there's this I love your comment about like observing us and seeing how much we can handle or whatever, because there does seem to be that theme where they're kind of, it's either an alien that like doesn't know enough about humans and is watching us, or it's a government employee who is either supposed to be watching us and seeing our reaction, or literally they're just bored on their fucking coffee break and they're like, I'm gonna go mess with this person. Like, and to me, it seems like the government one is almost a little bit more plausible. I mean, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Because the government one doesn't take much speculation because we know humans do weird things, especially if they're paid and able to do it. So I think that I think the rational mind will kind of conceptualize that much more easy than it would. There's species of other humanoid or even not even humanoid creatures somewhere in the galaxy, or one of that coming just across light years to visit us for some reason. I always thought of the have you ever seen Prometheus?
I haven't. No.
Oh, all right, I don't want to. I'm not gonna spoil the movie because it's like an alien related movie, one of in the saga. But in the beginning, it's a giant alien, and he kills himself, and when he dies, he puts his blood into like a river and jumps in it, and it's the seed of life for humanity.
Whoa.
So it was a mind fuck, because it was So it's like, is that a potentiality? Because it's like, I'm a God believing person myself, but it's like, man, it makes a lot more sense than there are aliens who did this, opposed to an all powerful cosmic being in a sense. I guess.
Well, I mean, but what would be more like understandable and like plausible than an all-powerful being to us, especially at the time, for example, the Bible was written, would be an alien, and it's like they, oftentimes they come from the sky. I was watching this video the other day that was talking about how even the Bible understands or accepts and writes about other gods. So like in the beginning, even towards, I don't know where this is, if it's Corinthians or Neo Genesis or what, but it talks about how there are other gods. It's just that we, the Christians only worship one God, right? But it's like, who's to say that, because there's an infinite, and like there's an infinite amount of other planets and creation. And like even in Mormonism, for example, so they believe that when you like, they believe that there are infinite other planets, and that like God actually was on this planet, and then he, evolved enough to create his own planets, and that when you die, you can create your own planets. And so in that sense, even Mormons strictly believe in aliens and other gods. And yeah.
Jesus. I don't know much about Mormonism. That's interesting.
I actually grew up Mormon.
Oh,
Crazy.
congrats, or I
I know.
apologize, depending on how you perceive that.
It's actually both. So I always say I'm really thankful that I grew up Mormon, even though I need therapy for it.
Yeah,
That's how
yeah.
that's how I say it. Like,
No, that's rational. I grew up Catholic, and now I'm just like, oh man, I'm not a fan, but I was like, oh man, I'm happy I did that because it gave me a foundation for something else. At least made me think about shit. That's interesting.
they teach real power.
Yeah. I mean, hey, we both got lucky. We were brought into Scientology, so we're both lucky for that regard. We could have got Hubbard.
I mean, I'm sure they have some absolutely stranger than fiction, bizarre truths within. I've never been. I want to go to a Scientology meeting so bad, just to see. Like, I just want to see.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about. Like, I don't believe in religion anymore at all. I mean, I think there are truths to everything, but as far as like attaching myself to certain ideologies or beliefs, I don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? I try not to.
I feel like seeing UFOs your whole life will do that to you. It'll kind of be like, oh shit, yeah. That could be a contributing factor for that, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, it's interesting, though. We'll get back to UFOs, but the polytheistic thing you're kind of saying, I'm just thinking about religions as a collective now. I feel like the vast majority of religions and ideologies, dogmatic or solidified, they all seem to basically mimic, the same belief of a plethora of gods in one regard or another. You know what I mean? We can go Egypt, Greece, anything. Anything. Even Buddhism and Hinduism, they don't really have gods per se, but from my knowledge, they have the Buddha, the figurehead. But there's more than one different Buddha. I mean, there's more figureheads than one. The Bible has Matthew, Mark, Mary. Like, obviously, they're followers, but they're still idolized as if they have untold power and influence over, not the subjects, that's a bad word, but the followers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Absolutely. And I think that so many Christians are, for some reason, very against the whole polytheistic idea, even though they themselves, if you look at the doctrine, are polytheistic, because they say it's like the Godhead, like the Trinity, but it's like, and I don't want to speak for religions, but from what I've come to observe, it's like they believe in God, and then like, or the Heavenly Father, and then they also believe in like the Son, like Jesus Christ, and they worship both, and both are supposed to be able to have this creative power. And so I think that like the one God thing may possibly be something that's kind of disintegrating a little bit, like that idea. Of course, there's like the one true source in the Big Bang, and we all come from that. And in that sense, it's like there was like one, and there will only ever be one. But it seems like, it's like multiple gods is kind of more the idea.
It's very weird, man. It's very weird. I kind of compare it to like Marvel villains or Marvel characters. Like, however high up you think your belief is, there's always a bigger, badder guy. So there can be Loki, but then the Thanos. But then it just keeps. I don't know if I'm a geek with that. I apologize for geeking out. But there's just a lineage of like power archies and shit like that. It just keeps seemingly ever going. It's like what we perceive as God. Like I guarantee you, if aliens exist in some regard, if there's one species, there has to be by nature more than one, just because of the infinity of the universe. I mean, it's not only is it infinite, but it's infinite and expanding. That's like, I've been trying to wrap my head around how big infinite is for like 10 years now. It's never going to happen. But I can try to think I do.
Yeah.
So it's like there has to be a plethora of species. And I assure you, some of them are probably godlike in properties and knowledge and power.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's realistic to think, because it's like, if we were to go back in time and show a caveman a cell phone, like their mind would blow. You know what I mean? And that's a
Yeah.
basic idea, but it's the same concept.
You don't even gotta go
But
back that far. If you show Ben Franklin a smartphone, that dude would have a stroke. Like, you know, like he wouldn't handle it. He couldn't handle himself.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
Um, I wanted to say real quick also about like Mormonism, because this just came to my mind. So this is very sacred doctrine. And like growing up, I'm a studier. That's why I'm a conspiracy theorist. You know what I mean? So I would study things that it's like, if you ask, like there's a point in Mormonism where like if you ask certain questions, you can get excommunicated. And, that has happened. But for example, so this isn't that deep, but the average Mormon will not know this. And that is that they believe in their doctrine that God came from a planet called Kolob. So literally God himself is from another planet. And to me, that might sound crazy, but to me, that almost sounds more realistic, because it's like, maybe we are this petri dish experiment and there is a higher advanced civilization. And that's why like people perceive like, oh, God doesn't give a fuck, because maybe this alien or entity or being did create us and then just kind of was like, well, I hope you guys make it, but I'm over here, So that almost sounds more plausible than him being in the sky. I guess he is in the sky technically.
I mean, God's everywhere technically, but no, I'm just fucking with you.
True.
No, yeah, I feel like it's kind of like I don't even know what animal it is. I'm just kind of speaking on my ass here. I think it's a fish, and like they give birth. I'm thinking Finding Nemo. I can't clownfish. I don't know how accurate it is because it's a Disney movie, but when Nemo's in the egg, there's like a billion eggs, and the parents like, oh, look at that, and they're naming one of them Nemo. I'm like, damn, that's probably God. God's like, all right, well, I like this one. You guys fend for yourselves. I'm gonna watch this one for a bit. I'll come back later on. Comes back, he's like, what the hell happened to the dinosaurs? He's all surprised and shit. Like, oh man, you guys had an ice age again?
Oh, dude. Yeah, literally though. Yeah.
Fuck. What was I gonna say? Oh, I wanted to ask because I mentioned smartphone, Ben Franklin, crazy analogy. Have you guys ever been able to capture like a photograph or a video of any of these things like appearing, disappearing, anything along those lines?
So first off, I am totally kicking myself for not taking a picture of that UFO. So it's actually crazy because, I always take my phone with me. That's just like an average person thing. But I was at the ranch and I was like, you know what? I'm going to not take my phone because I'm going to be in nature. So of course, that's when I see a fucking UFO. But as far as like my boyfriend being in Florida and like the things that he's seen there, he does have footage. So he has, and it's the same exact thing. They hover above, they park in the sky, and then they just stay there and they watch. And like my boyfriend would just stand there and film it because it's like, it's not moving. He actually went around, like when it happened, he went around like to his neighbors' houses and knocked on their door and was like, look, like this thing is like in the sky, which is totally relatable. But yeah, so he has footage of that. I don't think any of my cowboy rancher family have videos. They're not cell phone people. They're just not. And I think that's also part of the reason maybe why we're more exposed to them.
Yeah, I knew going into the question that no way. I assumed your family wouldn't have it just because starting in the 50s. I assumed back then, and I assumed they're just ranchers. I don't think the first instinct would be, oh, let me get my phone out. I figured I'd ask the question for the audience more than anything, and I was curious about you and your boyfriend's one in particular, but that makes sense. Trying to disconnect from just technology for a bit. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I remember literally kicking myself, like, oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, it happens because it's like, dude, I live in a haunted house, for instance, and I've seen probably 100 things and experienced 100 things. I've never once captured anything. I have friends and family. No one's ever but like it happens. So it's like when you're in that moment, I don't know what it is in your brain, but sometimes your brain just doesn't think about that shit till after.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like because it's not like within our realm of like really understanding. And so when it happens, it's like a flashbang. And then afterwards you're like, holy shit. Like you gather the information and piece it together. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you live
well,
in a haunted house though? That's so cool.
yeah. Oh, it's cool. All right. Yeah, yeah. Nah, they're benevolent. They're not bad. So it's good.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
it's just very bizarre. Um, what was I gonna say? Dude, my train of thought is off my mind right now. Sorry about that. I don't even know. So let's get back to the UFO. Okay, so this started like right after Wright Patterson established Area 51, or was it like post? You might have already addressed that. I might just kind of blew over. I'm just kind of trying to piece in the time frame here of like when events started for your family, opposed to when
Yeah.
it opened. Was it did it pre-exist the existence of the base?
So I couldn't tell you because I don't know much about Area 51. I don't know when the base was, but I can give you a time frame because so the particular story that my grandpa told me today when I like called him and was like, "Hey, tell me about your UFO stories." He was saying that when his dad saw one and chased it on his horse, and that happened multiple times. But this particular time, my mom. Oh, I want to say this would have been like the 80s.
Okay,
This sighting, but I mean, again, like he saw things much early. My great grandpa saw things much earlier than that, but I couldn't tell you exactly when.
gotcha. No
But yeah.
worries. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know. I know. I almost said S4. S4 is part of Area 51. I know 51 was established in 55. So I was curious because I think we're kind of in agreement that we think most of the sightings, if not all of them, are kind of man-made. I'm not man-made, man-operated and shit like that. So I was trying to see if
Yeah.
there was a pre-existing like lineage prior to that of actual events. Like maybe,
Right.
yeah, maybe if that's why they chose that Wright Patterson to establish it in the first place and whatnot.
Mm.
Because there's
Yeah.
like, yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Absolutely.
there's probably 5,000 military bases we don't know about in the South alone. So it's like, I don't
Yeah.
think strategic position really matters to them. They just put them everywhere they can. I feel like.
Yeah. No, but that's a great question in determining whether or not it's like man run or alien run, and like I do totally believe in aliens. Like I've personally like, experienced my own contact stuff. Um,
Oh, we're gonna have to
but
get
when
into
it comes,
that. I hope you know that. You can't just say that and not get into that. Just say it.
yeah. No, 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 no. I think that's a good idea. Let's get into it. I honestly, it's a very, very short story. It's just, when it comes to like UFOs, all I can say on that is, as far as I can tell, they are re-engineered. Did I say it right this time? Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
they're man run, and so there are definitely, I'm sure, UFOs that are alien, have aliens in them. But as far as the ones over by the ranch, absolutely, I believe those are humans. As far as my own
Can I
experience,
ask one thing? I'm so sorry.
oh yeah,
I'm
go
being
for
the
it.
worst host
Yeah,
ever, and I'm talking so much.
no, I am talking so
No, no,
much.
that's I wish you would talk more. I wish I'd stop talking. I'm sorry. When you experience the crafts, do they make any noise? Is there any noise? Is there any fume? Is there any scent, any odor, or is it just there?
Um, that's another thing that makes them so eerie is there's absolutely zero sound. There's no fume. There's no noise. And again, before I move on with that, I just remembered my uncles telling me about they 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 used to be out over. Then this was more by like the Arizona Strip, and I've hiked that my whole life, that like desert area. But my uncles, they would often get chased in their car by these things, like by these UFOs. So it actually freaked them out a lot, and they left for like a few years because
Wow.
they would be out alone in the desert and driving their car, and then they would just be like UFOs following them. So yeah, it's just been a common occurrence, so much to the point that when I told my uncle the next day about my experience, he just was like, "Yep," like
Yeah.
like they're there. So
I mean, yeah, there's about two
yeah,
things you don't want to see when you're driving alone in the desert. It's what's it called? Leatherface and a UFO. If you see those, you got to move. There's not really a third. There's no other option. You just get the hell out of there. Don't look back.
yeah, they're driving like full speed, running away, and these things are just like keeping on them like it's nothing. So
That's gonna be
yeah.
terrifying because it's like in that moment you must realize like, oh, they could just get in front of me in any second, no matter how fast I go. Like they could stop me anytime. That's
Well,
terrifying.
and why are they following? Like why? It's like it's not like these people have any interest. They're just like ranchers, dude. Like they're just out there in the desert and like these things. That's the only thing also that makes them so like not human. That's what makes me consider that is because like why are they so interested in like literally the most normal mundane human shit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, another
Yeah.
wild idea. What if it's like AI driven? You know, like to kind of collect the information, but opposed to having a human follow someone for no reason. Why waste the manpower when you have probably the commuting power? I mean, we have drone aircrafts since like World War II.
Mm.
Like we've had those forever. So it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them just kind of controlled.
Some of them seem to have like almost personality though. It's interesting because it's like the whole like telepathic thing, and it's like I'm open-minded, but I don't necessarily believe that it was because my boyfriend was telling it to come down that it did, but nonetheless it did come down. And so it is kind of like it almost has a personality. But yeah, it could be AI. There's also like I think it's like the grays are supposed to be like the stories of the gray aliens are supposed to be like partially AI type thing. So I mean, it could be a mix of things.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
bizarre. All right, please continue with your story. I've rudely
Yes.
interrupted.
No, it's good. It's a good segue. But no, so it was not a like physical encounter, but I am really into like astral projection.
Okay.
Which basically, I'm sure most people listening to this podcast are familiar with that concept, but it's when you can consciously leave your body in like basically in the form of a spirit, but it's really cool. The CIA was very into astral projection for like 20 years. And then they randomly stopped and said, it doesn't work, but that's hard for me to believe because I can astral project and it works for me. So if I'm an average citizen capable of doing these things, I absolutely believe that the CIA is involved in that stuff. But so one of the main things of like astral projection for me is I'm more better at developing astral senses. So I can, I'm working on it. I don't meditate enough. I get really distracted. I'm on TikTok for hours. You know what I mean? It's bad. But when I was really in tune with this stuff, I was really interested in connecting with aliens. And so I would lay on my bed or sit up and just kind of meditate and try to initiate communication telepathically. And so one of the things that I've heard is that these beings often more than not are more energetic than physical. Like they're not so much physically there as much as they are an apparition or an idea or energy or something like that. So I had felt like I wanted to try to initiate a conversation. So I was sitting and I was, I don't know how to put it except inviting beings to come talk to me. And one of my favorite psychics was like, if you want to talk to these aliens, if you want to talk to these things, you have to literally tell them to override your fear, because we are so programmed to absolutely shut out anything extraterrestrial, anything paranormal, and we are programmed this way. And that's a whole nother conspiracy, but that you have to literally tell them like override my fear. So I kind of did that. I was really just in the zone of meditating, and I was like, okay, like just do it. Like I'm ready. I can handle this. And I'm closing my eyes, and you start to see like grainy stuff, like the grain you can sometimes see even when your eyes are open. Like but
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I started to see that, and two silhouettes, like energetic silhouettes, and there were two of them. There were two aliens, basically. That's all the thing I can say. Just showed up, like they just were just not there, and then they were like they just formed, and they were there, and immediately in my head, I just screamed, like I just was like, ah, like I was not ready. She was not ready. You know what I mean? But and then they were gone, and that was it. But yeah, I did see that. So it
Okay.
could be the imagination. It could be connecting to other dimensions. I don't know.
Okay. First question: do you
Mhm.
partake in psychedelics?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I would like to do more.
Okay. At the time of this, were you under the influence of psychedelics?
That's a great question. No, I was not, sir.
Okay. Fair enough. I ain't judging.
Yes.
I love psilocybin. I'm just asking. Um,
Yes.
fucking. Okay. So when you saw these things, I gotta break this whole thing down because this is so interesting to me. Okay. When you saw these things initially, you said it was kind of like just silhouettes.
Yes.
Was
They were
it?
like,
Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
so like when you're like in the astral world as well, like astral projecting, oftentimes things have a silvery lining. Like um, they're like silhouettes. They're basically like the physical representation of like ideas, except they're not physical. They're just like the outline of it. So they were not, it wasn't like I was like face to face with these like green aliens. It was more literally just like an energetic silhouette or outline of them. So yeah.
Could you see the actual being inside, or was it all kind of the silhouette and radiance of it? Because I'm wondering if it was like a consciousness more than a being. You know what I'm saying? Like a, I don't know if that sounds crazy or not, but I don't know how to kind of express my
Yeah,
thought there.
no, that makes sense. They were two beings, and there were two of them. And what's interesting to me is I had tried to establish. I basically reached a point in my life with the paranormal and with all of this stuff where I was like, you know what? I'm jumping the edge. I'm jumping the fence. I'm just going to go absolutely wild and trust and believe that these things are real, because I felt like if I could establish a telepathic connection, that would be the only way that I could, is if I literally dived full force in, still keeping, a foot in reality, but mostly just being like, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to believe in this stuff. So I had imagined, and this sounds absolutely insane, but I had imagined these conversations with two alien beings in my mind for the past, I want to say like 4 months. Like it was almost like they would just like show up and they would just like be around my consciousness. And I would play around with it. And for the most part, my mindset was, oh, you're so silly. Like, none of this is real. Like, you're literally talking to yourself. But I allowed it to continue because I was like, who knows? Like, who knows what could happen? And then, about 4 months later, I was meditating. And then these two beings just came fully into my vision. So it was interesting.
Did you notice any feelings like internally as you saw them, like comfort, relief,
Yeah.
okay,
I, absolute terror.
terror?
Absolute terror. And I believe that they were good. I believe that they were like totally neutral, totally just like, okay, you said, let's see you, like, let's say hi. But when I say that we have been conditioned and programmed to reject these things and to not be able to see them and to be afraid of them, it's deep. The programming is extremely deep, I believe. So even though I desperately wanted to see them, and I was like, yes, I want to see them, I want to see them. As soon as I saw them, I like in my mind, it was just like, like I just almost passed out. It was just freaky.
Yeah, I should have known that it wasn't a feeling of comfort when you told me initially that you screamed instantly. That should have been a giveaway. I don't know why I didn't think of that one. Damn, that's
Yeah.
bizarre. See, for me, it's like I don't know if I'd ever approach it the way you approached it, like being like, all right, here I am, like, cause it's like for me again, I'm very odd with my shit, but it's like I'd be like feeling like that's an open invitation, It's like that's like going in the ocean and being like, all right, you can rub against my leg to like anything, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like that would scare the shit out of me. I feel
That's,
that might be part of why you
yeah.
got scared because like you were probably just I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like you're kind of just like oh shit like something's actually here like this is actually
Oh, yeah.
happening.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck
Because
man.
the whole time, like I'm like trying to establish communication, and the whole time that I'm meditating, the forefront of my mind is like, this is bullshit. None of this is
Yeah.
real. You're going crazy. But then there's just this little child part of me that's like, well, what if? Like, just try. Like, just if they could establish telepathic communication, what would be necessary, you know? And so, and you know, it's like this all could be totally in my imagination. It's just for me in that moment, when I like basically physically saw them. And for my reaction, I think that was part of what made it so real for me was my reaction, because like I almost passed out. Like I literally internally screamed and then was like almost like a cold sweat, like, oh my God, that just happened, you know? So it's like, for me, the reaction helped me realize, okay, like I think maybe something actually did show up telepathically or in the astral realm.
Yeah, so your actual effects on your body, not your mind, had you like validate kind of what you were seeing and interpreting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's crucial too, because it's like, again, saying anything anyone ever says to someone on the outside or a group of people on the outside, it's never gonna be as effective to demonstrate or paint the picture. You know what I mean? It's like, unless you're
Yeah.
like a Terrence McKenna ranting about the beauty of DMT. Like, you're never, even then, you're not going to envision, but like, you can, some people you can, I don't
Yeah.
know, you're never going to get the
Yeah.
full grasp of someone's experience. So to me, it sounds
Totally.
nuts. And if it sounds nuts in experience, like, holy shit, that's crazy to me. That must have been like
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming in the experience for you. So it's
Yeah.
like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was. It was exciting afterwards because I was like, that might have just happened. But again, it's like, even for myself, I'm not sure it happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm pretty positive that that just happened. And my reaction gives me confirmation. But other than that, there's no physical proof. So,
I don't think physical proof's required for shit like that, though. I can just base it off what I've experienced some weird shit.
mm,
I've aside from other people saying stuff, like I have no physical proof of stuff though. You know what I mean? It's never like I can't point to a picture or point to like a video and be like, oh yeah, this is the exact moment. So like, I feel a lot of people have that shit. Like some people are too like reluctant to even talk about personal experiences because of the stigma and the lack of that physical proof. But like if something
yeah.
like that happens to you and it's real enough to you, then like bro, it happened. Like what your mind
Yeah.
is powerful, but your mind is like it's part of you. You know what I mean? So it's like
Mm,
I feel like people gotta give themselves credit when weird shit happens, especially in astral projecting and meditation and like that. We don't really
yeah.
fully get the full grasp of that. Like I love
Yeah.
meditation, but I don't fully understand that shit from my own
Yeah.
way. So it's like it's weird.
It's weird. Yeah. I mean, I love astral projection. That's my passion, honestly. Like I would love to be able to project on command and then like teach people how to do it because it's very real
Yeah.
and mind blowing.
My
Yeah.
hesitancy with astral projecting for myself was and always has been like I'm deeply terrified of experiencing sleep paralysis type of experiences with like I don't know if you know about like the just stuff like that, like the stiffness and the just not being able to move and
Yeah.
seeing beings. So I always, and again, I know this is probably not what it is, but my mind for some reason connects it to. I always felt like if I went deep enough into an astral realm or consciousness,
Mm,
like what if I kind of got stuck? You know, like what if I couldn't kind of find my way
yeah.
back? I was like, what if I see shit? I'm like, I just can't do anything about it. I don't know.
So I've astral projected like 7 times, and what you're describing right now is the reason I have not projected in like 2 years. Because I don't know what happened, but something in me snapped, and I was like, it's like I almost have this awareness that if I project again, there is literally going to be a demon like in my face. You know what I mean? So I'm like I'm too scared to, and it sucks because I have to face this. You know,
Yeah.
I can't not go back.
Man, that
But
sounds
yeah,
like that's like some insidious shit when the old woman goes into the ghost realm, the demon realm, and yeah, no way, man. Oh
no, I
my
can't.
god. That is terrifying. Yeah, that's my problem with like LSD and other psychedelics
Yeah,
too. Like I don't want to just take something and then all of a sudden see a demon looking at me like the same way just right in my face, and I don't want to confront something like that for no reason. Yeah, it's bizarre.
totally.
I
But
think the
you have done like that stuff, right? Like, have you done LSD or
no, I've never done LSD.
no? That's fair.
I've only done psilocybin mushrooms. I have interest in
Yeah,
doing MDMA in a controlled environment. Like if I ever seen a study around me or whatever, I don't do street stuff. I don't like doing that, you know, because just the world we live in is
yeah,
crazy. Like I like recreational
yeah.
weed, I like shit like that. But I'd love to try MDMA. LSD, I don't know. DMT eventually. I'd like to smoke it. Not I want to do ayahuasca. I don't want to be gone for 12 hours. um, but yeah, aside from that, I'm not like I respect psychedelics and their properties and expansion of consciousness, and I'm very libertarian in the sense that I don't care about any drugs really. It's a personal freedom for whatever, as long as you don't hurt other people. But
Yeah.
yeah. What about yourself? What have you experienced?
I mean, so like I've done acid like 2 times. So, it's like the first time that I did it, it was a great time. It was awesome. I was having, it was exciting. And then I went into the bathroom and I totally forgot that I was tripping. And I looked in the mirror and like for like a split second, I like literally went to hell.
Oh
Like
Jesus.
it's the only way. Yeah. And it was like a split second. Like it was just like all of a sudden everything was like black, but it felt red and it was like like shaking. And I think it's just like really smart that people do stick towards more natural things. Although, like, obviously, I don't judge. I've done it like twice, but it's totally possible that there's like fear programming going into like I don't know how that would work, but the CIA has experimented with acid and stuff. But I've done mushrooms, and on that I like cried and realized that we were literally like slaves in a system. Like you know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've done like obviously I've smoked like weed and stuff, but yeah, that's about it.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Terrence McKenna at all.
A little bit, yeah.
Freaking love that dude. I fall asleep listening to that guy sometimes. That's a very weird. I don't know why I just said that, but it's like the I'm just gonna move on. Very very intelligent conversation to fall asleep to, but it's like it
Yeah.
makes you sleepy. Like you're like, oh man, this is like crazy. You just I framed that very fucking weird.
No, I think that's normal. I think
Yeah.
that's totally fine.
I'm just gonna move on from that one. So, no, but like he has an idea and like a notion when he was alive that he would like lecture and he'd be like, there's like an Akashic Records hive mind type of thing with substances. So he said, for instance, when he started doing ketamine, it was like an empty room because no one really had done it up until that point. But when he did acid, it was like it was a festival. Like
Yeah.
so, it's very weird. So I feel like if the shared I'm a big believer in hive mind mentality and the Akashic kind of outlook on things. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, I fuck with that stuff. It's very interesting. And by the way, I swear a lot. I apologize. We're an hour.
So
And
do
I'm
I.
just now
I've been
saying
holding
it.
back.
Don't worry about it. Yeah. So I think that when you have a extreme lineage and history of people like just having bad experiences forcefully and with a substance or whatnot, I think that can kind of translate into the cloud storage of the substance in a way, maybe.
Yeah.
Because you don't
Absolutely.
hear people
Yeah.
really tripping or hallucinating with weed or shit like that. But it's like I guess DMT is kind of
Yeah.
different because you're gonna most likely gonna have a bad experience of some kind. You're gonna have to realize something. But like, oh yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's weird.
Yeah. Totally. I believe in that as well. With the like stored consciousness, I was hearing somebody talk about that like 2 nights ago. Actually, they were saying that, for example, this realm, the way that things manifest into it, it's like we physically, like there's this mouse, you know what I mean? But it exists on an energetic level and like it was funneled down and this is like the physical manifestation of it. And so they were relating that to like, there are certain entities or consciousnesses or beings that like can't exactly, and this is of course all theory, but they can't exactly manifest into physical form. So the way that they come in is through chemicals and substances. So it's like heroin is an entity or, whatever. So I think that's interesting as well. I think it's interesting that we call alcohol, we call it spirits.
Yeah.
And I believe in possession through alcohol, like believe me. But yeah, so I think entities work through those things.
Did you feel any oneness with the entities that you experienced in the astral world? Like, did you feel like you kind of shared any similarities or anything with them, or did you feel like it was fully an external thing that you've never experienced in any way?
So that's actually a very interesting question that I've never thought about, because when it comes to real life, when it comes to this conversation right now, it's like I feel more connected with like you, for example, or my sister or whoever, in the way that I can tap into my brain and be like, okay, like the one consciousness, we're all connected. She is me, he is me, I'm him, whatever. You know what I mean? But and that's just kind of like my mindset. But to give it some context, so interestingly enough, in the astral realm, I actually did not feel that way. I actually felt like things were their own entities almost more than they are here in real life. And I think that's just my perspective, but yeah, because I've met a couple entities actually, but yeah.
Please tell me about the entities.
If you insist. Yeah, so I'll just tell you really quickly this. So so the let's see. So this was the second time that I had ever projected. Okay, really quick. The first time I ever projected, I went to my first college party. I was drinking a lot, and there was this really cute pilot who I thought was like a good guy, and I went home with him, and I ended up getting like very brutally attacked, and I actually ended up going into shock and throwing up, and I actually choked on my vomit. I know this is like heavy stuff, but I ended up projecting. I'd never done it before. I'd vaguely maybe heard of near-death experiences where, but I was in the corner of the bathroom and I was watching myself. And I remember thinking, oh man, like I'm going to die. Like I was like, this sucks. Like I'm going to die at the hands of this stupid frat boy. You know what I mean? So I saw like my life in the form of an aqua color. Like when I perceived it, so I'm like basically a spirit, and I perceived like my life in this form of like an aqua color, and that's like the color of my life. I identify with that color. Like that's my pronoun is aqua, I guess. But I decided when I looked at that I still had things to do, and I understood that it was like the blueprint of my life, and so I decided. Like I literally remember deciding to come back, and then it was like, and like I was like back in my body, and I was breathing, and I was able to call my mom and get out of there, and healed, and I'm good now, and all that stuff. But a few months later, my best friend she has stomach ulcers, and so we had to take her to the hospital. So we're in St. Mark's Hospital, it's a Catholic hospital, and we're in this like top room, the end of the hall by this parking lot. And I had been trying to project for months because after this happened to me, I was like, what the fuck? I got to look into this. I read books on it, and I was sitting upright in my chair, and I was so exhausted from being there, to help my friend out. It was nighttime, and I was just trying to sleep. And the nurse kept coming in every 45 minutes and like checking her vitals and stuff. She'd come in, go out, wake me up, wake me up, wake me up. Before I knew it, after like the last time she did it, I literally just like popped out of my body. So I was like a spirit. I was like a black silhouette. And I was like, I remember thinking like, yes, I'm projecting. Like I finally did it. So you can move instantly when you project. So I thought about the bathroom, and I just was like in the bathroom, so I'm like up against the wall, and in the like up above me, like there's just this giant black cloud of smoke, almost like if you've seen Lost, like I think it's the second season, there's like this horrible blackness. It was kind of like that. And so I'm watching it, and I just got this like feeling that it was like anybody that died or anybody that suffered, it just was like sucking it all in. And so I was like, holy shit. So I moved out of the bathroom, and I'm looking at the hallway outside of our door, and there's just this white orb. And I thought it was good because it was a white orb. And I just thought that. But all of a sudden, it was like the most aggressive energy, and it was demanding that I tell it who my God was. Like it was just like telepath. Yeah. Oh, it gets crazy. So it was telling me telepathically. It was like, who's your God? You know what I mean? And so at this point, I could actually see my friend because she was sleeping. I could see her spirit, which was also an orb. Because when you're a little more unconscious, maybe you manifest as an orb. I don't know. But she was out there, and we both got pushed to the back of the room, and we were both like, I don't know. And like just kind of came up with like, yeah, I have a God. And then I went back into my body and went into a dream, right? So the next day, I'm telling Lolly about my best friend about all of this. I'm like, dude, I astral projected last night, all this crazy stuff. A priest, a Catholic priest, came to our door. Because, in hospitals, they'll send like a nutritionalist, they'll send.
Final,
so this
like,
Catholic
goes
priest.
wrong, they have like a rabbi or.
Yeah. And he comes and he just starts asking us, he's like, I'm just here to figure out your denomination. I'm just here to figure out what your religion is. So essentially, he asked us who our God was.
Bro.
Yeah.
Dude. What?
Yeah, dude. And literally, I had just told my friend, so I'm looking at her, I'm like, and she's like, you're a fucking witch. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy, dude. Yeah. Yeah. And to top it off, I didn't realize this till months later, but the room that we were in was the room my grandmother basically got blood poisoning from. I didn't realize that she had stayed in that same room until later, because we had a lawsuit against St. Mark's Hospital because she had septic shock from that hospital, and she was in that room. So it just goes, the story is just like fucking crazy, dude. It's just, I'm not okay. I've not been okay.
Fuck, man. Well,
Yeah.
Okay, that might be the first time in like 40 episodes I've actually kind of been like speeded for a second. That was kind of nuts, man. It was really crazy. And then the priest was like, that was like a kick in the balls right there. I was like, yo, this is like, that was crazy, man.
No, dude, it was. Yeah. So yeah, I felt called to this like astral projection stuff because it's too real for me. It's like people are like, that's in your imagination.
I believe it. Yeah. I feel like it'd be crazy if you didn't look into this stuff. You would have to be like ridiculously like naive to not go into that after all that. I mean, that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Before I ask 35 questions about everything, firstly, I'd like to just, I'm happy your friend, I hope, is your grandmother, she survived the thing with the hospital?
No, she died. She died.
I apologize for that.
Yeah.
My condolences.
It's all right.
I apologize. I'm very glad to hear that you and your friend are okay, though, and I wish you both nothing but love and success going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the 35 questions, because I got so many. Okay, so, and I'm sorry, we can breeze past the first one if that's like, if you don't want to get into detail. Like,
I'm good.
Okay. So everything goes down. You manifest out of your body into the corner of the room. See yourself with the blue aqua. That's your pronoun, right? You said all right, aqua.
Yes, yeah.
If you didn't say the pronoun thing, I would not have remembered that shit. So you saw an aqua kind of like glow above yourself or above your like spirit. I'm not sure how, like, I don't know how it works.
So I was it was next to me. So it was like to my right, and it was just like a wave. It was an aqua wave, and I interpreted it as my mission or my blueprint that I was supposed to do on this earth. And I looked at it and decided, oh, I still have more to do, and I came back.
That's so crazy. Not crazy in like a didn't happen way, but just like mind bending.
Yeah.
How have you written that one off? Like, how have you rationalized that? Like, what do you think? No, what did you? Obviously, in the moment, you knew exactly what it meant. But ever since then, have you thought about how you knew the rationale of it, or was it just like you knew with no reasoning? You had the feeling.
So things are different in the astral realms. You will literally interpret information immediately, like drops your downloads, and it's kind of telepathic. And so I've never really thought about it like this, I guess. But yeah, in the moment I knew. And another interesting thing about that time, the first time I ever projected, I had a near-death experience, is that I think I was in so much trauma and shock from being attacked and what happened that I actually didn't think about the fact that I had literally gone outside of my body for like a week. It wasn't until like a week later that I was kind of coming back into my body probably, and was like, oh, fuck. And so, I started looking at like the Robert Monroe Institute and like reading all of these, William Bulum, like all of these books on astral projection. But yeah, at the time I did immediately know that it was a type of blueprint for my life.
Do you think it was like a? Did it have like? And I don't mean to pry into detail, but I kind of have to because
No,
this
you're
is
good.
so fascinating. Do you think it was like a physical or like a separate, not an entity, but like a just a frequency that was kind of present in the moment? Or do you think it was an exertion of your mind that was saying, "Oh, look it, this is what. Remember all this stuff. Remember, you know what I mean? Was it like your mind telling you, or do you think it was an external kind of thing placed in there by something or some power or whatever?"
Like, I want to say both, but more of my mind. It was more of like, um, just like looking at like looking at the data, like just being like, should I come back? You know, I didn't think that. It's not like I physically thought that, but it was like I was kind of just like looking just to see like, oh yeah, I still have a lot more shit to do, and then came back. So I think it was part of my own mind.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
18th time, I said that's crazy. I don't know what else to say at this point. This is crazy.
That's fine.
This
Yeah.
is so. And
No, it
just
is.
disclaimer: I know nothing about astral projecting at all. So this is like completely new to me. I know the rudimentary.
Really?
Understand nothing. I know that I'm scared of it. That's literally all I know. Nothing else.
It makes sense. It makes sense to be scared of it. There are entities, you know.
Yeah. No. I.
For the most
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
for the most part, it's pretty chill, honestly. Like for the most part, it's pretty quiet in the astral realm. But there are terrifying things, but there's a lot of different perspectives on it. You know, they could be projections of your own consciousness, and then you get to address it and be like, oh, come give me a hug, and we can, you know, I can heal this childhood trauma, which is manifested in the form of a werewolf coming at me in the astral realm. You know what I mean? I've heard somebody say that, you know, that was what it was for them. For me, I tend to think of these things as literally external entities, but yeah.
Is this a therapeutic practice in psychotherapy? Do you know, like, did the like psychiatry, because psychiatrists use and psychologists use this type of shit, or is it like very like pseudo
That
to them?
I'm sure it's pseudo. I'm
Gotcha.
sure. I mean, we're just getting into mushrooms, but that would be
Yeah, so yeah,
groundbreaking.
we see. Yeah, it took me. Yeah, we literally are just accepting the fact that mushrooms do shit. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
valid. Yeah, shout out Maps,
Yeah.
greatest freaking organization on earth. But man, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're seeing this after the events happen. You're in the corner. You see the agua aura. It rationalizes that you still have shit to do. You got to keep fighting. You got to keep going. What is the process like of you going back to your body? Because have you seen Doctor Strange, the movie?
I haven't. I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah,
I
you
live
got to
under
get
a
into
rock. I'm
Marvel.
weird.
This is a segue. You got to get into Marvel. It's the shit. But so Doctor Strange, he be astral projecting and stuff like that. And at one point, when he is like very naive about the process, he starts kind of swimming back into his body to get to it quicker. So is it like, oh, you mentioned you just kind of teleport, right? So did you just
Yeah.
teleport back into yourself, or did you move gradually?
So interestingly enough, when I was talking earlier with you about the UFO and how it moved so quickly across the valley in like a second, and how I'm like, that was teleportation, and my boyfriend's like, well, actually, it's just like supersonic. I mean, I don't know if it's supersonic, but it's just like crazy speeds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's almost more like it's like basically teleportation, but it's not. It's like it's just like very quick. It's like in a second you're like there. So you can almost feel the motion for a half of a second of just being like going into your body. But other than that, it takes like just a second. So I don't think it's teleportation as much as it is very, very fast.
Is it like when you kind of wake up from it, get back into it? Is it a gradual awakening, or is it like you just woke up in the morning, or is it like like it was like you blinked? Like how does your mind kind of cope with that when you come back into?
So that's a good question. It's hard to say in that circumstance where I had my near-death experience because I was already suffocating. So I was like, um, and I was in shock, you know, because I had been attacked. And so it's hard to say how conscious you really are when you come back. But I do know because I was already out of it. But I do know that when I came back, it was like I always clap when I express it, because it was just like all of a sudden I was back and I was gasping for air and I was like, like I'm alive, whatever. But again, I didn't really think about all this shit for like a week. I think it was too much for me to process. But yeah.
Very understandable. First of all, like obviously, the amount of detail you remember from the experience, from this experience, and the whole field of that one experience is just it's very uh, commendable. My vocabulary is so not there right now, and I apologize. I'm struggling to find
that's a good
words
word,
right
commendable.
now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, so any information you obtained from that, I mean, credit to you first of all. So
Thank you.
absolutely, the second experience, you have to jog my memory. Okay, the hospital with your friend with the stomach ulcers, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, this one was what? Yeah, this is what blew my goddamn mind. That's why. Okay,
I gotta write a book about this shit.
I
You know
was
what I mean? It's
literally
too
gonna
crazy.
say I'm not a Hollywood guy, but Jesus Christ, you gotta write a manuscript. You gotta do something
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Something. I mean,
Literally.
you and your family
Yeah.
gotta do one volume of just UFOs. Then this is a whole separate. You could have a trilogy going here.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh yeah. There's
nuts.
a whole bunch. Yeah. And
Fuck.
it's funny because this is actually the first time that I'm publicly like saying all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like I wrote an article and submitted it to like Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul, under the section miracles, because I'm like, yeah, that's a fucking miracle. You know what I mean? But other than that, like I haven't even talked to anybody about this. But yeah, so I appreciate this platform,
Oh,
honestly, because
dude,
this has been in me, and I'm like,
yeah.
here you go.
No, my appreciation for this conversation is undescribable. Thank you for opening up about all this. Is crazy. This is like the
Yeah, yeah,
UFO stuff's very interesting. It's very, very, very interesting. This is just like, this is very personalized. So it's like, I appreciate the
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I guarantee everybody watching this has the same feeling and shit like that too. We're all kind of getting the same message here. Yeah, I just spoke for everyone watching, so that was weird. What was I gonna say? Okay, so you're in the hospital with the stomach ulcers. So do you fall asleep, or are you awake and you start kind of doing this and you fall asleep as you're? How does that go?
So I had been trying to fall asleep over and over. I'm sitting up in a chair, like the chair by the bed. And the nurse kept coming in to check on the vitals, like I said. And so I was kind of in and out of consciousness. And that's one of the best ways that you can project. If you can recall that time when you're like literally in between sleep and awakeness, and it's kind of that nice, peaceful, floating feeling. Like there's a reason it feels floaty. You know what I mean? So like you can literally apply techniques to project out of your body. Ironically, almost every single time I have projected has been times when I was not trying to. Like I had been trying to for months, and then I kind of relaxed, and then all of a sudden it just boop, what happens? But so I was in between sleep. I was awake and irritated, that I was awake, but I was like just about to drift off into sleep. And because the nurse had been continuously jolting me awake, I just popped out. And I think it was meant to happen, obviously. Like I do believe kind of in divineness and like synchronicity, because it's like, that's the room where my grandma died. Like, everything. I don't know. But I mean, she didn't die there. Sorry. She just was dying. That's where she got septic shock and she eventually died.
Yeah, the synchronicity factor alone, I'm a big believer in that, just for my personal life, like in patterns and shit like that, and that says something in itself in any situation, especially when you have like already a gut feeling of something, when you can kind of back it up with something else. It's like, oh shit, that's interesting. So
Yeah.
so you're in between sleep, you finally just doze off, and it's instantly as you're kind of like explain the like, so like asleep, boom, you're out.
Yeah. So it's like it's like kind of like the last few blinks where you're like, you can feel yourself falling, like, that falling feeling.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Which I used to get that. That's a good time to launch yourself out to project. And there are techniques for that. You can read like books like William Fulham or whatever. But so yeah, it was just like maybe like one more blink and I would have been out, but instead I was out of my body. So it's just like, yeah.
Is there any sense? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I was excited. Like I was conscious, and I was like, oh, I did it. You know, it's just like I'm out.
Yeah, because you said you were trying to do that after the first experience, like after you kind of rationalize, like not rationalize, but after you kind of differentiate the event from the astral projection, you were like, oh, I kind of want that again.
Well, I was just like, what the fuck happened to me? Because I had heard of these near death, well, I'd vaguely heard of near death experiences. And then, you know, I started looking into it. I kind of knew that it was more than just, oh, this only happens when you're dying. But I didn't realize that there's an entire institute like dedicated to this stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like when I say like, I want to learn how to do this on command and teach people how to do it, like that's my dream. Like I would love to, and I don't know how to do it on command yet because I'm afraid of demons and I'm totally, yeah, like I'm undisciplined. So, yeah.
Well, if there's anything to be afraid of, it's probably demons. I'm a level with you there.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to get into the nitty gritty of the story, but I just have more questions before. Another question before, just kind of put in perspective, I guess. When you kind of get into the other realm, is it like clear that you're not in the ordinary environment, or does it, you know what I mean? Like, does it mimic reality, or is there physical differences in appearance?
That's a great question. So I also had to look into this. Also, like, hold on, I think my camera froze.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was hoping I wasn't talking to myself for a second there. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of kept talking, so hoping the camera would unfreeze. Didn't happen.
No, you're totally good. So your camera is gone now, but
Oh shoot. Okay. Yeah, you're just frozen on mine for some reason. Let's see.
Well, as long as we can hear each other, but I'm
trying to get that. Hopefully it'll just snap back in. Okay, so yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Hopefully. Yeah, totally. So where was I? Sorry, I lost all train of thought. What was your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
Oh, when you go into the astral world, is it like a different environment, or does it kind of mimic the reality?
So I had to learn this. I had to look into this and read this, but there are different versions of the astral realm, and there are different levels. So there's like the astral realm, the ethereal realm, and like, you know, I've been trying to learn all of this throughout the past years. But there is what most people project into is the real-time copy of reality. So it's basically like the shadow reality. So you can think of like, what's that awesome show? I love it, but I can't remember the name. It's like the Upside Down. You know what I mean?
Stranger Things.
Yeah. So like so like that exists, and when when they're talking about the CIA agents that are, you know, training 11 and they're using psychedelics, and she's having to literally see these demons and they come in, you know, it's like on a certain level, all of that is real.
Okay.
And I don't know how real, but I do know that the CIA is involved in this stuff. Anyway, so most people, they project into the real time. So it's like a shadow version. And that's, if I am remembering correctly, the only thing I've ever projected into. So basically what's cool about that is you can see everything. Like you come out and you see the hospital room, you see your bedroom, whatever. And so my intention, if you can understand this, like I've been like there have been times when I was first getting into this super immature, I was like, I'm gonna go see what this boy is up to. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's so creepy. I'm like gonna come as a ghost, but yeah. So yeah, pretty much.
God damn. Well, thank you for absolutely verifying and solidifying the fact that I'll never probably try this ever again. You didn't even think about it. I do not want to see a Demogorgon. I don't want to see any of that stuff. I don't want to think about it.
Dude, if I see a Demogorgon, I will lose my shit. I will not be okay.
That's so crazy. Dude, I've had like some shit happen that I was like, all right, that was scary enough. Like, I'm good for life now. So like saying that, like that awakens a deep like curiosity, but also deep like inherent terror inside of myself that like.
Absolutely. It's why I won't project again. Like I won't say won't, but it's why I haven't in like a year or possibly two, because I just know that something is there. Like I just know that something is like waiting for me, because
You
all of the times I've projected have been unintentional. So I'm worried that if I intentionally project, something's just going to be like, well, hi there. Like, you know,
do you think it's specifically not looking, waiting for you to do it again, or is it looking for anyone to do it again, and you're just kind of in
like
its
it,
way, or do you think it's like a personalized thing?
like if there's a demon.
Yeah, like if there's an entity or a demon, whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know if you've ever heard the term like hitchhikers,
Yes,
or
hitchhiker,
like,
hitchhiker spirits, right? Sorry, that was word vomit
yes.
right there. Absolutely have. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm worried that it's like that. I'm worried that like I've picked up some spirits, or maybe there are spirits that have become aware that I'm projecting, or maybe there's a spirit that's siphoning my energy. And if I go, I have to confront it, because, you know, it's like I dealt with chronic fatigue for 10 years. That's like a whole nother thing. I've recovered now, but it's like, you know, what if there's some energy vampire that I have to face? And it's like, kid me used to be so brave. Like 8-year-old Jesse was a fucking badass. You know what I mean? But adult Jesse is like, I can't do it. I can't see these things, you know? So I'm scared to
Damn,
go
damn.
again. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not a motivational speaker, but you gotta become a badass again, Jesse. You gotta be that badass, dude. I'm not saying conquer the demon, but I'm saying, like I ain't never gonna tell no one to
Yeah,
fight no fucking demon in the astral world. But
I know, right? Yeah.
hold on,
Dude, for
I'm gonna pause this recording for 1 second, see if we can figure out the video thing here.
okay,
Real
yeah.
quick. If we can't, no worries. But I'm just gonna see real quick. So we'll be right back, folks. It won't even matter for you guys. You won't even notice it. All right, we're rolling. Okay. Again,
Heck yeah.
to the audience, that was literally just like one quick pause. That was like 15 minutes. So that's funny.
Yeah.
Um. All right. So yeah, we just realized we don't really fully know what we left off on. We think it was the Demogorgon type of thing, so we're gonna roll with that. So, oh, you know what it
Mm.
was? It was this could not be it. This could have been early, but I think it was the fact that we were talking like if the entity was purposely waiting for you, or if it was kind of like yeah, I think you said the
Yeah. Oh,
hitchhiker
yeah.
thing. Yeah, okay, we'll get that. We're good. We're good. So
Yeah.
you think it's kind of so you go with the notion of this kind of a hitchhiker entity more than anything, opposed to like solely you.
Well, oh, that's a good question. And this is highly like, well, I won't say highly debated, because saying that it's highly debated implies that it's like people are like fighting. But in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
type of community, we're usually just exchanging ideas. But it is debated whether or not these things are projections of our own consciousness and solely imagination, or whether they're real. Yeah, or not even real, but just like separate from you. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that there is like a hitchhiker on me, or that I know that there is a demon or something. I'm just like afraid that there will be. And if there is, I'm not sure if it'll be like my own projected consciousness or something separate. However, I will say I think it could be both. I think it could be something that is a part of me, something that I've adopted, like a program, but that doesn't mean that it's not an entity in and of itself. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I think this obviously this is in the supernatural realm of shit, so it all kind of ties in. Could we at the beginning of the podcast? Sorry, I sound like heartburn for a second there. Beginning of the podcast, we talked about like how the notion of a lot of people is to knock these things off is just nonsense, because like it's just the programming has been so institutionalized in the masses to not believe or think about these things in a logical way. I think that's part of the thing with when
yeah,
it comes to demonic entities or possession or ghosts, anything like that. And obviously, there's a big distinction between demonic and ghosts. I feel like a lot of people believe in ghosts and not demons, or vice versa and whatnot. But um,
yeah,
nah, man. The way I see it is there's duality in the universe. So like, if you are a person who believes in inherent good forces, I mean, by nature, there has to be a counteracting to that. Like there just has to be. We can try to pretend like there
yeah,
isn't, but if you don't want to accept that there's even good, then I can understand your notion and your prejudices toward the subject. But if you're someone who's like, oh yeah, there's good, or like this, like, bro, you got to realize there has to be. It's equal. Like we live in a duality
yeah,
filled universe, so it's.
yeah,
I just feel like by nature
absolutely.
there has to be bad things. I don't think we want to accept that, but a lot of people have experienced bad things, so it's like, are we gonna chalk all that to the imagination? Because scratch marks, but shit like this, physical things that happen to people that like can't chalk up to the
Absolutely.
subconscious and shit.
Yeah. Totally.
That's my little
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
little
It's
Bill Murray Ghostbusters rant right there. Sorry.
I no, for real. Like, I feel like it's just easier. I mean, this is an obvious comment, but it's just easier for people to maybe suppress that stuff, or I don't know. I mean, there's this astral projector who I follow. His YouTube channel is incredible. It's Phase Evolution, and he teaches like how to project. And he's just like your average Joe. Like, he's um, just a regular dude, but he figured out how to project one day. And he is a little bit more on the side of not believing in demons, which is interesting to me because he projects, at least like once a month. Like, he projects quite often, sometimes like twice a month. And he has come across like some scary things. But in his mind, he's like, I don't really believe in like demons. He's like, it's interesting because he's almost more like kind of atheist mindset. And so it just goes to show like, you don't need to like, there's so many wide spectrums of beliefs when it comes to like the astral realm. Like, you don't have to be like a Christian or, whatever to believe in this realm, because this dude's basically just an atheist who's like, yeah, I think I'm projecting into my own consciousness essentially, but it doesn't make it less interesting or less real. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's one of the things with like psychedelics. You don't have to believe in them. If you take them, like you're gonna experience it. Like if you actually experience an astral projection, I feel like for someone who's never experienced it, just from your understanding of your explaining of it, I feel like you're just gonna accept it. You have to, because like it
yeah,
happens. It's not like one of those things where you can be like, oh, that might have happened. Like, it happened. I feel like so. It's
yeah,
very odd.
yeah. There's validity to it because you experienced it. Like, we have such an interesting idea on like what's real, like, but it's like it's real if like I'm imagining a banana, like that's real because I imagined it. So like that really happened in some space and time. That's undeniable.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what makes real is you experienced it to a degree.
Absolutely, yeah. No, experiences is everything. Because this is such a sidetrack, but I always perceived it. Not always. Like recently, I perceive it as like like people want to think they're their own person by choice and stuff like that. But I feel like this is just me speaking because I use myself as a model for anything I kind of think of like philosophical, which whatever whatnot. But I'm like, I think you. I believe in free will to an extent, but I think people over romanticize the notion of free will. I think you as an individual are who you are due to the fortunate and unfortunate things that have arisen in your life. Like, it's how you react to said events that define the pattern of a person you are. Because I've done some shit in my past that like I'm like, oh man, that was awful. I hate that. But it's like if I didn't have that,
Mhm.
would I think about this thing that way? It's for me. It's no. I have to think about this way because that happened. So it's. I think people like don't want to realize that like experiences and your ideas and your feelings like it's very very real. It's very impactful on yourself and by nature on others around you. Like if you're a piece of shit,
Yeah.
people around you are gonna be pieces of shit or be miserable or be afraid of you. If you're a love, if you give off a good vibration opposed to a negative one, like, you're gonna people will connect with that shit. Obviously,
Yeah.
I think there's so
Yeah.
much shit that goes on with the mind that we don't even understand. Like I don't know if we ever will, but for right now we have such a rudimentary understanding of the mind and consciousness, and it's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. One of my favorite quantum physicists, I forget his name, but he like took the Star Trek phrase and was like, the last frontier is not space, it's the mind. And like, I feel like that's the era we're entering into and people say like, oh, raise your consciousness, expand your consciousness, elevated consciousness. But in reality, it's like, no, literally like expand your consciousness. Like the last frontier is not space, it's the mind. So yeah,
Did you say
I don't know if that was relevant to what you're saying.
did you say your favorite astrophysicist? Is that what you said?
A quantum physicist,
Quantum.
I might have
That's what
said
it was. Yeah, I feel like
astrophysicist.
a plebe because I can't name a single one. You said like, oh, my favorite one of them. I was like, damn, she knows more than one of
Well,
them, bro.
no, no, no. That's fair. To be fair, I also cannot name one because I don't even know his name.
Yeah.
So it's like I read a lot of articles or whatever, and I'm
Oh
like, oh,
yeah.
this is cool, this is cool. But I'm like, I don't have a list.
Yeah, nah. But
you know?
you can only retain so much information and shit. Not everyone can be an alien or a robot like Elon and shit. Some people just gotta just remember details
Mm,
and not everything. It's crazy.
yeah. Absolutely.
All right, back to again. Sorry for the segue. Back to what we were saying.
No.
I mean, every podcast I do, I tend to apologize for that shit like 8 times, but I never actually correct the segue. So it's like I'm just gonna either stop apologizing or stop doing them. There's no other option here. Um, so okay, you're in the hospital. Your friend has the stomach ulcers. You just fell asleep. You're on the verge of falling asleep, and boom, you're
Mhm.
back. You're in the astral realm for the second time now.
Yeah.
So I need you to kind of okay. Can you step by
Yeah.
step a little what you did again? I know like the
Yeah.
mass in the bathroom and all that, but what was the lead up to that like? I forget that part.
So honestly, it was a short projection, which is one of the reasons why I think I was able to remember it. So when you're first projecting, you're not used to like, this is what I've read, you're not used to that kind of consciousness. And it's very easy. So like, for example, I went back into my body and went to sleep. And so people say we project every single night. We're just not aware of it. Like we're not conscious of it. So I think because it was such a short projection, that's why I have a memory of it. But so with that in mind, what happened was I opted out of my body. Oftentimes you have like a 360 perception when you're projecting. It's really weird. It's like you're observing yourself projecting, but you'll also be like seeing from the projector's point of view as well. It's very strange, but I was like just excited. Like that was my first instinct, was kind of just like a what, like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm doing it. Like I'm projecting. And so for some reason, I think I just wanted like a change of scenery or just to explore. And so I'm like, let's go into the bathroom. And so I just kind of, like I was saying, like that instantaneous, not teleporting, but really fast. I just was like in the bathroom. And so I'm in the bathroom now, which is in our room. They have that little, in the hospital room, they have that little bathroom. But I was against I remember like my silhouette, I like was against the door like this kind of, just kind of like looking around. And up above me, there was just this giant black cloud. You know what I mean? And so let me think about that. Sorry, I have ADD. I get so distracted.
No, you're good. No worries.
So yeah, there's just like this giant black mist, and I just kind of, it was very overwhelming, and I could feel it in like my heart center. You know what I mean? And I just kind of got the impression from it that it was absorbing the energy from anybody who died, anybody who suffered, and it wasn't necessarily even an evil thing. That was the interesting thing about it too, is it was almost innocent like a child, but it was hungrily eating. So it was not, it was like chaotic neutral or something. I don't know. But anyway, it freaked me out, obviously, because it was just like noticing that I was noticing it. And so I just was like, and like got out of there really fast. I went out of the bathroom. And so now I'm looking into the hallway. And there's just this orb. I don't know if you wanted me to go fully into the story again.
No, you're good. Can I
but
ask one question before we get to the orb?
yeah, go for it.
I definitely want to ask about the orb, because that's just crazy too. You said that the cloud was like, you said it recognized you recognizing it, like you was kind of mutual, that you guys like recognized one another.
Yeah. I would say yes. I would say it was kind of doing its own thing, just kind of up there like, and then as I'm staring at it, I almost felt like it was kind of like coming closer to me. And again, the way that I perceived it was that it was just there to eat the pain that might have been experienced in that hospital room, or like the death. That's how I interpreted it when I saw it. But yeah, so I think it was aware of me, but I'm not sure that it was completely conscious. In fact, if anything, I would say that it was like a very unconscious energy.
Did you feel anything radiating from it, like energy-wise, vibration-wise, like anything like that? Did you get any notions about it?
I wouldn't call it like radiating, like just to pick on that word. I think it was more like a black hole-ish, like it was kind of like sucking. But it also was its own thing. It was very like individual and real, but it's almost like it had amassed from all of the, again, like the suffering. And I find it interesting that it's like a Catholic hospital. I'm not saying that to like pick on Catholicism or religion in general, but it's just like interesting to me that there was so much activity there.
I mean, I feel like if there's any place, there's like three places. One of those things would linger around. It would be a hospital, a mortician's office, or a cemetery. Like so. I feel like that kind of
Yeah.
fits in with the whole thing. Well, I'm never gonna look at a hospital bathroom again the same. So thank you for that one. But that is
Yeah.
crazy, bro. That is like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
like.
It was a lot.
Do you have thought? This is a very weird question. Like, I don't mean this in like a disrespectful way. Do you have thoughts when you're in the astral world? Like, do you like think about things, or do you just like recognize things?
That is a very interesting question. You do have thoughts, but it's like the clearest form. So it's like, how like in your head right now, like you might have, at least for me, I have ADD, but like, it's like, I have like a ton of thoughts that are going around. It's like spaghetti, you know what I mean? It's like,
well, I got a ton
like
of
buzzing.
voices. I got a ton of voices, so that's kind of this. She's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
My voices.
She was like, oh shit, I'm talking to this guy. No, I'm just messing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely though. Yes, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So yeah, so in the astral realm, it's almost like you're in complete control. And so the thoughts that you have, it's like, it's very quiet in the astral realm. So you will have thoughts, but they're very controlled. And that's one of the things that makes, for me, the astral realm so exciting too, is like, you're very like conscious. You're very aware. It's not like a dream. And it's not even like daily life. It's like, I maybe had like 3 or 4 thoughts. Well, probably more than that, but I don't know. You do have thoughts, but they're very clear. They're very short. It's very quiet in the astral realm.
I mean, it sounds very like. It can be either sound like romanticizing it or like horrifying it. There's like a big like. I feel like that's a duality of everything, like I mentioned earlier. But I feel like you could find like a lot of like pros in this area, in this realm, in this dimension, whatever it is. But like, then there's the ensuing chaos that's like enthrived with it. It's not like the potential of that sounds just catastrophically like not worth it for. I'm being very narrow minded to it. I'm not trying to shut it down. It's just like. It sounds beautiful in a regard, but it sounds absolutely terrifying at the same time. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. But again, because your thoughts are so clear, you perceive things almost at like a super level. So it's like you can be seeing something that's horrific and you're not connected to your body. So when you're in your body and you see something horrific, like a dog that's going to come get you, your body is like trying to stay alive. So it's sending you all of these signals that are like, help. You know what I mean? But when you're in the astral realm, you're like, whoa, that's freaky. But you're not as connected to your nervous system. You know what I mean? So you're just kind of more observing it a little. So it's not bad.
Like when you're in your body, it's kind of like just the evolutionary process of like, oh yeah, that's a predator. I gotta be scared for my life type of thing. And when you're in this, it's just like, oh, that's something. Like you just recognize it opposed to freaking out.
Yeah, you get more curiosity than anything else, but that doesn't mean you don't get scared. There is scary things, but
yeah, that's comforting for sure. For sure, definitely. I'm just like. I feel pessimistic right now because I'm looking for every opportunity to shut this down and I don't even know why I'm trying to do it because I'm not a pessimistic guy. But it's like I feel like it's your soul, it's your being, your consciousness is still lingering there. I feel like that's more personally for me. If someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, like I'm gonna take your body, your soul," I'd be like, "All right, take my body." You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have my flesh suit that's gonna die in 50, 60 years from now if I'm lucky. Like just give me the freaking.
Dude,
let me keep that.
That's a very interesting point, though. I think that's something that I haven't even thought of. I've just been in this like backpack on explorer mode. And it's like, that's a legitimate thought or concern. And I don't know like the logistics of how it works or anything like that. But like, totally, like what if you do encounter a strong enough entity that just like sucks you into their vortex and then you're like a vegetable?
Yeah.
Like I've, like that's a legitimate concern. But I've read that like that can't happen. I don't know how these people know that, but I always feel safe when I'm projecting. I do know that. I feel like I'm good. And the second that you want to go back to your body, you can. I've only heard of one instance where somebody had troubles getting
Oh,
back.
please tell me about the trouble story. Please let me hear that if you know the details, because that's nuts.
Well, it's that so it's Phase Evolution's YouTube channel,
Okay.
and
I'll link that in
so
the bio for
basically
everyone who wants to check that out. I'll make sure I link that.
he's incredible. Like I love him so much, but he so he started astral projecting so much that he actually started meditating in the astral realm. And again, he's this average Joe dude. You would not think it looking at him. You'd just be like, oh, he works in the office, whatever. This dude is fucking meditating in the astral realm. But anyway, so he was meditating in the astral realm, and he ended up finding himself in this like park in New York. And I think like his grandpa is like passed away there or something. And so there were all of these like spirits, and they were all like kind of in a heaven area. And so he was able to like see these people, and he was like, where am I? And they're like, we're like, essentially they were like, we're basically in heaven. Like you can, like when you die, you can go wherever you want. And like, this is basically a room like that. So he's like, oh fuck. Like I went too far. I need to get back to my body. You know what I mean? So, cause he got there through meditation. So he thought about his body, and normally, and this happens with me too, if I think about my body and I want to go back, I'm back. But he thought about his body expecting to just be like back, and he didn't. He didn't go back. So he's like, I died. Like I've gone too far and I've died. But so he was like trapped there for like a minute trying to figure out like how to get back. And he said he eventually was like, well, I meditated to get here. Maybe I could meditate to get back. So he like sat lotus like in this place and meditated, and he vibrated back, because you feel this like vibrational thing. That's a whole other thing. But he was able to go back to the astral realm where he was before, like the realm where he was. And then he was like, okay, think about my body. He's back, and he's back in his body. But he's been doing that for years, and he's done it like 100 times. And he said that only happened once, but yeah.
Man. Dude. Imagine just chilling and like you're like, oh, this is nice. I'm gonna go a little further, and then you're just talking to like who had souls who are like, oh yeah, welcome to heaven, bro. Like that's so crazy. I'm just trying to put
Welcome to heaven,
myself in
bro.
that position. I would probably just accept it. I'd be like, damn, it was a nice carnation while it lasted. I guess that was tough though.
That's so funny.
Cause like, dude, I'm just thinking, I'm just being a weirdo. I'm thinking what his body was doing during this whole time. Like, what if you like, got stuck there for good? Would you just go to a coma? What would happen? Like, I'm thinking weird stuff now. But I'm thinking like, damn, like, how would that like work on the outside world?
Yeah.
That's so
I don't
bizarre.
know. Maybe a
I
coma.
know that's not the right question to be asking with everything you just said. So I apologize for that. But damn,
No,
dude,
it is totally.
so crazy. That's so bizarre, man. You know, this is mad random. I feel like everyone's excited about like Facebook's metaverse and all that, and VRs. But dude, like maybe the Astroverse is where it's at. Like if they can harness that,
That's what I'm saying.
hell yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So that's like where I am coming from. So that's why I'm like, I want to teach people how to do this. But I have my own saying with that, because I'm like, we have the internet, but what about the inner web? You know what I mean? Because that's real. Like we have an inner web. And like people at the Monroe Institute, because again, there's like an entire institute dedicated to the practice of astral projection. They have found through, doing it and through their studies that you can interact with people on the astral realm. So different doctors have like intentionally projected at the same time and met each other, and they're like, we're projecting together. So it's like, imagine the implications you could do. Like you could be like, okay, ladies, we're having a witch night tonight. Everybody meet, under this willow tree and under the full moon in like the astral realm, and we're gonna go, who knows what. I mean, you can do a lot of things. It's fun to eat things in the astral realm.
Bro, I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you right now, if I was gone right, if I was high right now, I'd probably just be in tears because you're kind of that's scary, man. Jesus, man.
People are scared of this. Yeah, it's scary. It's terrifying.
Again, anyone listening, don't let my cowardness deter you from getting interested. I don't know about this. I gotta look into it, but Jesus, am I apprehensive about this. But it sounds crazy. Like, I'm all about altered states of consciousness, especially natural induced ones, opposed to like external forces doing it. Like, if you can meditate and shit like that, like if you can do shit like that, like just with your mind and determination, I think it's so fascinating. But it's like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, man.
I think like the Native Americans have been doing this stuff for like a long time, and it's a very ancient practice, so it's very natural.
Yeah. If any, yeah, I feel like if any sect of people would do that and throughout ancient history globally, it would probably be natives because just
Mhm.
the ideologies and shit they have is their folk tales and stories with from
Yeah.
my limited knowledge on it. They're very interesting stuff, but they're very into that type of thing with the oneness with nature
Yeah.
and the world. Very interesting. It's
Yeah.
bizarre.
Well, yeah, like with the natives, like you think about how they will call each other like animal names, like this is whatever. I'm not very smart, but it's like they'll be like white fire hawk or something like that, and it's like these white men come and they are like, oh, these primitives, like they're so cute. They're calling each other these names after animals, but it's like legitimately these people are like astral projecting and seeing the true form of a person's spirit, and that's what it is, and then that's their name. They're like, that's your name. So it's like clearly that's more advanced, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a very subjective like classification when people talk about like technology and wisdom and stuff like that. I mean, bro, we can go back to Mesopotamia with Sumer. Like they had literally a model layout of every planet and the sun in the center of our solar system, chronologically based upon size of planet. Like that's just like, but we want to credit them as being like, oh, they're the first civilization. Like no, like they knew more than we did up until like the 15th century actually. You know what I mean? So it's like, Native Americans like, oh, they were spiritual. Like, dude, they knew some shit. Like, they knew they
Yeah.
came from the stars. They knew constellation. Like,
Mm.
dude, it's. I hate to be
Yeah.
this guy, but it's just the history of the world is so whitewashed by like European settlers conquering everything and just
Mm.
not caring about what previous installments of civilizations had done. Coming from a white guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's whitewashed as shit.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. Like it's
Yeah.
absolutely nuts, bro.
Absolutely.
European settlers
Yeah.
are shameful for what they did back in the day, just for natives. I ain't getting into a history lesson though. I got my beliefs. But now let's get back
Yeah.
to the your story in the hospital. It's okay. So you see the cloud mass. So you like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
getting the hell away from that. I don't want to deal with that. Is what it is. Which is
Yeah.
respectable.
Yeah.
Which is respectable as hell. So you go back into the room or you go back into the hallway first.
So I went into the room, but the door was open, so I could see into like the outside basically.
Yeah.
And um so I say the hallway, but it's like I just mean like the entrance way of the room towards the outside of the room, basically.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, yeah. Anyway, so what was I gonna say?
Also,
Yeah.
I didn't
So
realize you had people
basically,
there. I've been swearing. I apologize for that.
no, I've been swearing. No,
All
it's good.
right,
They're
word.
used to it. They know I'm. It's
Tell
my
whoever that
sister.
is
She's
my
cool.
deepest apologies for the profanity this whole time.
No, I got headphones
All right,
on. They can only
perfect.
hear me.
All right, cool. Okay,
Yeah.
continue though. I
Like, yeah.
apologize.
No, you're totally good. So yeah, so that's what I meant by the hallways, just that I could see into the outside and into the hallway basically.
Hell yeah. Okay, so that's when you get confronted with a white ball of light. Like, when you say
Yeah.
ball of light, do you mean like is it like an orb or is it like a crystal ball type of light with like you know what I mean? Like, what?
Yeah.
Cause
I've seen so it
yeah.
was yeah. It was so it was an orb, but it was like very white, and it was just kind of glowing. It was just like a white glowing orb. And so immediately when you see something like that, you're like, oh, an angel, like something good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in reality, if somebody were to ask me, like, what was the more evil entity, like the dark cloud that was eating the pain or the orb that demanded to know your God, it was the orb. That was one of the most evilest, penetrating, like, spirits. And I don't want to say like evil, except that it just was very aggressive. It was demanding to know. in a harmful, almost feeling way. Like, who is your God?
So that's when you kind of were like, oh, you also saw your friend's consciousness or I'm not sure how. What's the correct term for
Yeah.
that type of thing? Is it consciousness?
I don't know. For my friend, it manifested for me the way I perceived it was an orb. So first I'm just like interacting with this orb, right? Like it's in the hallway coming into the room kind of, and it's like, who's your God? And I immediately from its energy just went to the back of the room because I was just like, whoa, like this thing is like coming at me. And then from there, I saw like I looked to my right, and my friend's like consciousness or spirit, whatever, was like in the form of an orb next to me. And both of us, the way that I perceived it, like we're just kind of like, oh yeah, like we have a God, like we're, you know. And then I was trying to be like a little rebel, like I was playing it safe because I remember specifically thinking like, oh, maybe she's female, but yeah, we have a God, like, you know what I mean? So it's like it needed to know, it needed to hear us say there is a God. It was really weird, but yeah. And then I went back into my body and I went into a dream, and it was a very conscious dream. But when I woke up, I was like, holy shit.
Dude, I'm just like, why would it? I don't understand like why a random consciousness would or would like. Obviously, it was probably nefarious by just how you're explaining it. But like, what's the purpose of it? Like demanding your faith. Like,
Yeah.
does it give it power or something?
Well, that's an excellent question, because when you look at the story from the perspective that the next day there was a Catholic priest that was in the room at standing exactly where the orb was and was like, you know, I'm here to find your denomination. I'm here to like, what is your religion? I was just literally, my heart was, I was just like, I will never see anything the same again. You know,
Can I ask you a
it's crazy.
question? And this will connect. I promise. At the time, were you practicing Catholicism or Christianity of any kind?
No, so I left the Mormon church when I was 17. And at this point in time, I was 21. So I had been inactive in any religion for 4 years at the time. But I mean, like I always say, like Jesus is my homie. Like, you know, I think he's a real entity, a real person, cool guy. And but yeah, no, I wasn't practicing any religion at the time.
Gotcha. I asked because I was trying to connect the dots that probably aren't connectable here, but I was like, I wonder if that was kind of like one of those circumstances where it was like, God's source, an angel, and whatever you want to label a higher power as was kind of like putting you in the position of, okay, you think this is what you have, or you haven't like second guessing about Catholicism or whatnot. Maybe I was thinking like, oh, maybe that ball of light was a representation of the priest the next day, and that was actually his
Mm,
energy that you kind of saw ahead of time, and
yeah.
this because the question was the same, and I was wondering like the claim you were like, oh, it comes off as apprehensive and demanding, and you didn't say what you said it was evil, but then you're like, oh, it was just like, I was like, damn, what if that was kind of like you like something telling you like you're not on the right track here, and that was kind of like
Yeah.
puzzling the pieces
That,
where it's
that's,
like.
that's a total potential. And like, it's interesting because every time I've told this story, I've described it as evil and more evil than the dark spirit that was eating energy of pain. But there was something, I don't know, just extremely threatening about like the white energy of it. Like it just to me was not friendly as much as it was like dominating and very like I mean, because I don't know, it could have been, but yeah.
I was just thinking because like light associate we would think of like bright lights associated with like, oh, that's positive radiating energy, but I was like,
Yeah.
we associate priests as like servants of God. You know what I mean? Like they're supposed to be the guys who.
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, maybe I'm getting ridiculously like connecting the dots here for probably no reason. But I was just like, damn, what if that was like the facade that you were supposed to subconsciously see through, or even consciously be like, damn, like this guy's like he might be thinking like he might be portrayed as this, but like the roots of what he actually believes or what behind. And no disrespect to any Catholics. I don't care what anyone practices ever. But
Yeah.
maybe it was like, damn, the roots behind this ideology are not what I think they should be for myself or whatnot. And I don't know. I'm big
Well,
leap, big leap.
I don't know, and it could have just been like a personal thing. Like maybe that priest in particular is trying to reach a quota, and what, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't represent the Catholic Church, you know what I mean? Or any religion. It's just, for whatever reason, I interpreted that orb to be very aggressive, to the point that it was like frightening. But, that could have been my own subconscious issues.
Absolutely, yeah. My apologies to any Catholics out there. It's nothing personal. I talk shit about every religion all the
Mm-hmm.
time. I love them all equally, but it's very bizarre.
Same.
Um, okay, so the next day the priest comes in. He says that. What is like the first thing that
Mm-hmm.
goes through your mind? Are you just like what happens in that for you in that situation?
Um, just surreal. Like, it was just surreal. And it was also just kind of confirmation, I guess, in a way. I feel like my whole life I've been pretty connected to the other side. Normally it's manifested in like paranormal ways. So like ghosts, like I've heard ghosts, whatever. So it's like I'm used to looking for these kinds of shock factor synchronicities and miracles. So it's not like it's completely new, but yeah, it was just very surreal. And I was just like, it again, it like made everything real.
Yeah.
So, like, there was no way to gaslight myself and be like, you know what? I think I was dreaming. None of that happened. It's like, no, like, I literally saw, like, him come before he came. So, yeah, it just made it real.
Crazy, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Crazy.
it was fun. Yeah.
I mean, if
A
this isn't
lot.
if this isn't an example that we live in a simulation, I don't know what is. No, I'm just kidding, but I do believe that.
Probably.
No,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. I always throw that. Whenever I hear weird shit, I always just throw that out there. I'm like, simulation. If I can't explain anything rationally, I'm just like, programs, man, programs.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's so nuts. Do you think this
Yeah.
this is completely? I don't even know if you thought about this. Do you think there's more than one type of realm, like aside? Because obviously there's base reality as we know it, that we think's base reality, just because this is what we perceive all the time. But who knows if it actually is? And obviously there's the astral realm. Then you have realms where you introduce substances, where you enter a completely different realm of consciousness. Do you think there's like many different possible dimensions, realms, whatever you want to call them, that we can kind of float in and out of, or do you think we're pertain to these couple that we know about?
I think we're more energetically matched to the ones near us. It's like that's why most people don't have an astral projection, a conscious astral projection experience, is because they're not on that frequency. They're not, because like, as we know in like quantum physics or whatever, like recent science is like everything is just wave particles and whatnot. So we like, it's like everything works kind of like with like the law of attraction and like magnetism. So it's like, if you are somebody who is constantly putting yourself in the realm of paranormal experiences, in the realm of UFOs, in the realm of whatever, then you're naturally going to assimilate closer to those realms and you'll experience those. Like I've kind of gone off the deep end. Like, I believe there is a dragon realm. I believe there is a fairy realm. Like, I believe there is an infinite amount of realms that we could potentially tap into. And so, yeah, I think there is an infinite amount of realms.
Hell
Most people
yeah.
just experience this one.
Yeah, whether it's by choice or by like programming, I feel like we're kind of not stuck here, but we spend most of our existence here. You know.
Someone's harvesting our energy. We're like here trapped on purpose for sure. I believe that.
Dude, that's weird. I was talking to a buddy last night. Shout out my buddy Max if he was listening. But we were talking late last night, just texting about like current affairs and shit. And he was like, somehow, as you know, I digress. So it digressed into like Göbekli Tepe and archaeological sites from tens of thousands of years ago from like young Dryas. I love that shit, so I just started ranting about it. And he's like, so why do you think they suppress all this? Why do you think they do all the things? And we connected all, and I was like, dude, like I can give you a rational answer and be like, oh, they don't want us to know we're advanced. They want slave work. They want, financial. But dude, like borderline, behind everything, like what if there's just a cosmic force at play here? I mean, they openly admit they do some weird things, spirit cooking with Marina Abramovich. We don't have to get into the Podestas and Clinton. Like
Oh
there's
God,
weird
yeah.
shit. There's weird shit. Shout out YouTube for banning me for that video, but there's weird shit. Like it's established. So there has to be something behind their intent there. I'm not saying it's the devil with the horns and the pitchfork, but I'm saying because I'm not a biblical guy. I'm not like I like the Bible as a story and like as a kind of reference for living your life. But accuracy wise, I don't accept it. But like, so it's like I don't even know why I said that. But it's like there's definitely a cosmic force of some shit. Because I'm a believer in source energy. I think we all like little fucking little blips. Everyone's a little blip from this one giant pool of like there's a lake and kind of little drops go every now and again. That's what people are, But like, so if
Mhm.
that's true, there's got to be a source of negativity just by the duality of it. I feel like. So I'm like,
Yeah.
what if like the point of them doing all these things, all the suffering and I mean, there's a reason. I love horror movies. I mean, I have a horror movie phone case on the back of my phone, but it's like I always wonder when I'm watching. Sometimes I'll be like, dude, like, am I watching this and the adrenaline I'm getting and the energy I'm giving off, like, is something collecting this and thriving off of it? Is the reason the news is always showing death, murder, rape, abduction, all that? Is it because it ignites a fear in your brain and shit and you release chemicals to, really crazy, outlandish
Mhm.
shit, but I'm like, what if there's
Yeah.
something that's literally just soul sucking that shit? Like a Dementor and Harry Potter or whatnot?
I think there is. Honestly, I think there is. Like, I think everything you said is like pretty much like, again, logical, like to kind of come to these ideas because, for example, like that spirit that was in the bathroom, like in the hospital, like it was so big. And so I talked to a psychic about that later, like this crazy psychic. She's so accurate. It was wild, but she was saying like especially like she was saying that there are these basically they're like dementors, like they call them soul eaters, and so they will literally suck off the fear. And so she said she's literally seen them, for example, and again, this isn't anything against the Catholic Church, but for example, you got to be aware of these entities. But there was one she saw in a Catholic cathedral, and it's like when they would talk about hell and the depths of hell, and like when people would feel guilt, it comes from your heart, and you're like, oh, like I'm gonna go like burn in hell. It's like it's very possible that there's something literally sucking up and eating that. But as far as like horror goes and like being worried about that, it's like you can alchemize the dimension and the frequency based off your own perception. So if you're actually like having a good time, like for example, I do special effects gore makeup, but I don't like
No
horror
way.
movies. Ironically, yeah,
Wait, you say you
yeah.
don't do horror movies?
I do. I don't like gore, and it's so ironic because
Oh
I do
man,
special effects gore makeup. Yeah,
that's
but anyway,
insane. By the way, after this is over, I'd love for you to send me a picture of something because that would blow me away. I love that
totally,
shit. All right, awesome word. Continue though. That's
totally.
awesome.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's very fun. I want to get more into it, but yeah, no, I think there's definitely things that are like, because why else would they be like constantly like fear, fear, fear? And you can look at it from a physical level, and I think that's accurate. They do want to control us, but there is another level. There's a spiritual, ethereal realm. So
Yeah,
yeah,
'cause it's not like this. People like to call the class who does these things the ruling class, the elite class. Like, I'm never gonna call them an elite to myself or ruling because I think words hold kind of importance and whatnot. It's negative self talk. I'm very like very bullish on myself
that's
and how I
real.
say shit. Yeah. I don't push that on people, but for me, it's like you'll never hear me say, "Oh, I hate this," or I just won't do that shit anymore. But like, I'm not gonna call someone who has intentions that are, World Economic Forum related type of things. For just a broad example of a group of crazy people. I'm not gonna call them
Hmm.
the elite class or the ruling class because they were born into a lineage of crazy people based on
Hmm.
lobbying and whatever they do in the shadows that we can speculate on or we can actually prove about in some instances. But it's like, you think they just do these things to do them? Like, I don't buy that for a second. Like, no one really does
No.
anything to just do things most of the time. So
So
it's
we're talking about harvesting pain and fear and all this energy from that from that energetic level, and it's like, are they like harvesting these things? So then you can bring it down to like the physical level. Are they harvesting that? And we start talking about things like adrenochrome. You know
yes.
what I mean? And obviously, that's a very like, that's QAnon, that's this crazy conspiracy, and like that's fair. But at the same time, for example, my stepdad, he actually is a lawyer that works with drug companies and the FDA, and he will tell you adrenochrome is real because he has worked to literally help companies patent synthetic adrenochrome, as in there's real adrenochrome, but they're trying to make fake adrenochrome legal. And there are actually like startups in New York City that sell blood, and it is young blood because it's proven to make you live younger. And so it's like, it's really not that much of a conspiracy theory as much as it is like you can actually look this stuff up. Um, yeah, but then you get into like, Google, their processing thing is their graphics processing is like, Adreno, and then it's Chrome, and then it's like you start realizing how fucking scary everything is. That's a whole nother trip.
Yeah, it's weird because I think like I think media and movies and whatnot and entertainment, it's all it's obviously programming in some kind of sense. It's kind of like that idea of like sigil magic. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where it's like
Kind of.
yeah, anyone who doesn't know, it's just basically like if you there's a theory in like witchcraft and dark magic and dark arts and the Aleister Crowley type of I think it was Aleister Crowley type of notion who kind of emphasized the epitome of like this shit. It was like you talk about what you do openly and put the idea and the evidence out there in some form or another so that people know about it, and if they know about it and do nothing to stop it, then there's no karmic repercussions or what the hell's the word.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no bad karma on your consciousness because at least you told the people around you what you were doing.
I've heard that. And that would make sense because they're doing it all the time. They're telling us all the time.
Yeah.
Literally, it's everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for adrenochrome, I was thinking obviously Monsters Inc. Um,
Yeah, dude.
it couldn't be any great movie. My childhood is Disney, and as I've grown up, my childhood was things that a former white supremacist Nazi was making a company to put out propaganda films. It's shout out Walt Disney for being a
yeah.
huge piece of shit his whole life, by the way.
Yeah, well, okay, but that's an excellent point too. And like bringing up like the Nazis and stuff, it's like we look at the Holocaust and we're like, why did he want to kill and murder and torture all of these people? What was the point? Well, what if there was a point? What if there was something being harvested? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm not a fan. I'm under the assumption in the fall of the notion of winners tell history. The winner tells how it went. So that's why when people around me will talk about Putin and all this shit, like, oh yeah, he wants to start the Soviet Union. Like, no, dude, it's been how long? He doesn't want to start this. First of all, their GDP is the size of the state of Florida. Okay, they don't have the financial resources to physically do this shit. I mean, they have fertilizer and they have oil. Like just break it down by logical thinking. It's like it makes no sense. So it's when this is over, that's what they'll tell you. But if Nazi Germany won, you know what I mean? If fill in the blank here, if the Viet Cong won, there would be a different story in history being told and shit. Good example, Star Wars. The Empire. I mean, the Republic took over. The Republic, they turned on the Jedi. They killed all the Jedi under Palpatine. Palpatine forms the Empire. The Empire runs a propaganda slogan and campaign against the Jedi, saying the Jedi try to kill him and overthrow democracy. That's not the reality, but the victor told... You know what I mean? The victor tells the narrative and shit. So it's... I don't... Yeah. I'm a big believer in history, and I love looking into history, but it's like, you gotta take it with a grain of salt sometimes, because it's like, yeah... Like,
absolutely. That's just it, though. It's a grain of salt. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, yeah, listen to it. Like, yes, these atrocities happened, but nobody's denying that at all. It's just you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Like, and I personally pride myself in doing that. It's like I'll hear both sides of the story and then not even come to a conclusion. I just have building blocks for a potential conclusion one day.
Absolutely, yeah. It's crazy. It's Man, if I had a penny for every time I said it's crazy today, I'd be fucking rich, man. I would be swimming in a pool full of dollar bills right now.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's in fact crazy. Can you give me 1 second while I just grab a water bottle? Do you mind real quick?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I prepared very badly for this.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. It's a good time for me to text my boyfriend and be like, I'm alive.
Oh, fuck, man. Man, if you guys are still listening to this point, thank you for that, because I know I've personally taken this on some crazy avenues. She's done nothing but tell some good facts, and I've just been puzzling pieces of
Whatever.
everyone about Nazi Germany and shit. It's crazy.
That's
Um,
fun though.
Nah, my people who listen to this are so used to my weirdness. I started a new. This is random. I started another podcast with my buddy Alex, and he's a very I think I'm rational to an extent, but I believe some outlandish shit. But he's very cutthroat. He's like a lawyer, knows his shit. Older guy by like 10 years, much older than me. And it's Theorist and the Realist. And what we do is we sit down, just have conversations about we'll present a topic and we'll just talk about it for an hour, 2.5 hours, whatever. It's we've done 9/11,
Yeah.
MK Ultra. It's interesting. So I'm used
Dude,
to talking.
that's my
Yeah,
people.
hell yeah, man, hell yeah. Fuck, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think that's a good thing too, to talk to other people of opposing narratives too, because a lot of my friends and none of my family will ever talk. They don't even talk about shit like this with me, the Big Joshua stuff. 'Cause I just ramble and shit. My friends they'll do it sometimes, but it's I have so many people not agreeing with what I say, and it's fun in a way, because it's
Yeah, absolutely,
civilized
absolutely.
discourse. Yeah.
Well, it's when dogs fight and they're playing, but they're fighting.
Yeah.
It's that's how debate is for me. And then afterwards I hug it out. I don't understand people I have sympathy for them, whatever. But I don't understand people that it's if somebody presents a different view to you, you're gonna be like, oh, I hate you. It's I don't care what your view is. I'll fight you in a friendly, aggressive way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun. It's fun for me.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
some of the things I've learned and changed my perspective on in real life affairs just from having a simple conversation with someone is crazy. Um, no, I'm not even, no, I'll say it. I had a conversation with a flat earther one time, and no disrespect to the woman, she was very nice woman. Shout out the flat earth goddess, but I didn't come away learning anything, but it was a lot of times, a lot of the things I think of today, it was just someone hey, you know about this? And I'd be like, nah, I don't. And then I just look into it for 12 hours, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
nothing against flat Earth. I didn't mean to throw that on the bus. You guys do you, but it's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I have an interesting theory about people who believe in flat Earth myself, honestly.
Sure.
So it's if you hear about the theories of dimensions, and so it's we had the first, second, third, fourth, and so on, right? It's we're in the third dimension right now. So what's interesting to me is that I learned that dimensions exist within dimensions, right? So if we're in the third dimension and the Earth is manifested as a sphere, then who's to say that the second dimension doesn't exist within the third dimension, because it does. And so within the second dimension, wouldn't that be a plane? Wouldn't that make the Earth flat? So it's what if flat earthers are literally just observing the second dimension? And it's yeah, that exists. You know what else exists? The third dimension, which is the one we're perceiving, which is why the Earth is a sphere. So that kind of when I realized that, that kind of changed my mind a little bit on flat earthers. I was maybe they're onto something. It's just not within the third dimension. And I'm not a astrophysicist or a quantum physicist, so I don't really know what I'm talking about. But it's a theory.
Jesus, yeah. You got me thinking. That's some 4D chess instead of 3D chess. Yeah, that's that's the next step.
Because the dimensions are within the dimensions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if the second dimension is a plane, then wouldn't our existence on Earth be wouldn't it be flat? But I'm not a flat earther, because I perceive everything to be in spheres naturally. For me, that's what I'm attuned to. But
Yeah.
I feel like they have a point,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Listen, they say I had a conversation with her. She had a lot of things that I agreed on. The only thing I didn't agree on was the shape of the Earth. But aside from that, I was yeah, I see what you're saying. I get it. I don't fuck with NASA. They're full of crap. They're funded by Nazis.
Yeah.
Founded by Nazis. Paperclip and all that. But
well, that's all true. It doesn't mean that the Earth isn't round, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. One thing we don't have to talk about flat Earth because I have nothing to contribute to the conversation. More than happy to. I have nothing aside from just subjective ideas. But what's it called? One thing that she brought up to me that was very interesting is there's not a single video of the ISS being built, and I was like, that's not true. And then I looked into it for an extensive amount of time, and I could not find one single video of that thing being built.
Oh man, space had better be blowing my mind.
I mean, you can find spaceships being built, anything. You can find anything in the world being built except the International Space Station. So it's why? Why not just show it? I don't get it. It's very
That's so
bizarre.
weird.
Yeah.
Huh.
If anyone can show me a video, please send it to me. I'll Venmo you $5 because I need to see that shit. It's crazy.
Totally.
All right, let's get back again for the 19th time. Let's get back to your story here. After the priest comes in, that whole fiasco kind of settles. What is the next experience you have with astral projection post those two experiences?
Okay, that's a great question. So, I'd have to think about my third experience. Because I like have these experiences, but I don't have them like in order. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Or just any experience. Yeah, you don't have to go chronologically. I mean, yeah.
So, well, okay. One that was kind of really, really profound for me. So are you familiar with like Wim Hof?
Oh, the breathing, the Iceman, right?
Yes, Wim Hof Iceman. I always call him. I'm like Wim Hof Iceman. That's how I refer to him. But
All I know about
um,
him is that he made me take cold showers every day, and I fucking love it. That's all I've done, but I love it.
isn't it so
Oh,
nice?
it's so good. It's so good.
It's so
The,
good.
the first
Yeah,
15 seconds are literally like you're in hell for about 15 seconds. Like you
yeah.
expect to see the devil, but then you're like, all right, I can do this. You start breathing. You're like, I got it. Then you get
It
energy
forces
after.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it forces you to connect with your heart. Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
And then you're alive.
Yeah.
You're like,
Wakes you the hell up.
yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love that you do that too. But yeah, so I follow Wim Hof Iceman, and so I did a breathing meditation of his, and I was laying, or I was sitting up on my bed doing, or no, actually I was laying. You have to lay down for this meditation, but I was laying down on the bed, and just so people know what the meditation is, like you breathe in from your you expand your stomach, and then you expand your lungs, and then you pull it up to your head and expand, and then you like circle it over and keep doing it. So you're creating like this energy vortex circle like within your body and outside of your body. So I was doing that, and he warned, like in the video, he was like, by the way, like you will feel like lightheaded and kind of high after this. So um like take it easy, don't be driving, whatever. So I did
I'm
this
so sorry. One
meditation.
thing is like holistic breathing. Is that the right term? Where you can get naturally high from breathing and shit.
I actually don't know the correct term, but I have heard that. Like,
Okay.
I don't know if that's what it's called,
Okay.
but probably.
Sorry to cut you off. I
Probably.
was just
Yeah.
curious if that was the same thing or not.
No. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I did that breathing meditation, and I was already impressed with the results because I did it for 20 minutes. And when I was done, I was pretty much just kind of like naturally high. Like I was just like very lightheaded, and I was very feeling great. And I was like, whew, I actually have to like, I think I'm going to take a little nap, because I'm like, this is a lot. So I set my timer, I think for like 20 minutes. I was just going to take a 20-minute nap. And about like 7 minutes in, I think that's what I've figured out. I heard this like, not a voice. It was more just like I understood the information immediately. But it was like, this is going to be kind of scary. And the way that I interpreted that, like who it came from, was like my spirit guides or something like that. I haven't really connected with spirit guides, but I thought maybe that was who or what that was. But that was what it said. It was like, this is going to be kind of scary. And so I completely surrendered. Or I remember just like letting go completely and being like, okay, like, yeah, I'm going into this void. And again, this was all occurring about when I was like about to fall asleep. It's like that in between magical phase. So all of a sudden I'm out of my body, and I'm out of my body, and I'm in my bedroom downstairs. And there's just a spirit that is a black silhouette, and it's right in front of me, and it's just watching me. And it's kind of like aggressively watching me. Like I could tell it like was kind of curious, but it also was just kind of like there, like in my face. And so I'm kind of hovering, and it's hovering, and I'm hovering with it. And my body, when I got like kind of close to this thing, just started like shivering. Like the only way that I can describe it got ice cold. And the only way I can describe it is like my body was crying. So I've never experienced anything like it, because that's literally how I would describe it. My body just started sobbing. It was just like being both traumatized and almost healed at the same time. But yeah. So anyway, I'm seeing this shadow, and I kind of all of a sudden came to, like, I kind of became more conscious in the astral realm. And I was like, well, I need to destroy it because it's, it's dark and it's making my body cry. It's clearly evil and I need to protect myself. So I like mustered like this light and I just like basically like blew up. Like I like burst this energy at it. And then I went back into my body, like really quickly. I was like back in my body. So of course I get up. I'm still kind of cold, honestly. And I'm like, holy shit. And so I go and I write this stuff down because I'm like, what happened? I drew everything. And 4 hours later, my favorite psychic, his name is Phil Good. Like on Instagram, he goes like by Phil Good Life. He's incredible. But it's not like feel good.
That's a good.
Yeah, it's it's like PHIL good. But so I'm really connected to this guy. That's a whole nother story. He holds the archetype of Merlin, and I hold the archetype of Merlin's daughter, which is also a whole nother story. But 4 hours later,
I'm curious about that. After this, I got to hear that. I'm sorry. I keep unraveling the freaking onion here. I'm just go on though. I'm sorry.
that's just like I'm just like happy to have someone to talk to about it because like yeah. But thank you. But yeah, so 4 hours later, my favorite psychic, Phil Good, he posts on his Instagram story and he's like, I just met my shadow. And he's like, I just had a 30-minute conversation with my like shadow. And he explained what the shadow was and all of this stuff. And I'm like, of course I'm blown away. But like, I'm used to stuff like this with Phil because we are literally connected. It is insane. Like, I can't deny it. So, anyway, yeah. So that was the time that I met my shadow and I attacked it because I am a fool. Didn't realize that I was supposed to try to talk to it. I literally just like kamikaze bombed it with light.
Now it's like sorry. I thought you were, I didn't want to interrupt you again. I was going to let you finish. Do you think the shadow was like, is it your ego or is it like just like a reflection of your self? Like what do you in him feel like kind of conceive that as?
So I've heard that it's supposed to be like your ego. That's what I've heard. Okay. I don't know like a lot about the shadow, but I do know that it's like both separate and a part of you. Like it is you, but it's my favorite psychic, he described when he has had the video, and you can like look it up on Instagram, but he said the same exact thing that I experienced, that his body became extremely cold and was shivering. And so it's like your body is naturally afraid of this thing. And I don't know why, for sure.
Could it have been like an ego death type of experience? Like, because I've had like again, subjective for myself, it seemed like I had an ego death at one point because I had a similar experience where I broke down and started crying. And I wasn't crying. I was conscious. I wasn't projecting, but I was just like deeply meditating. I came back and I had a really profound, just like inner like epiphany with myself and what something else was kind of guiding me along, whether it was a spirit guided angel, whatever it was something. The terminology for these things are fucking vague. It's very hard to differentiate some things from other things, but it's like I had that experience where I opened my eyes and I was just like, damn. I said damn and I just started bawling. Not any sadness, nothing, no sorrow, just tears of like tears I've never cried before. It wasn't tears of happiness or sorrow. It was just there. It was like my soul was bleeding externally. So I'm wondering if like that's how I perceived an ego death, because ever since then, like how I view my mind and everything around me was just like, man, I feel so much more connected and distorted at the same time, if that makes sense. Like I feel disconnected from everything, but I've never felt as connected in my life than I do now. Very weird how I explained that, but I don't know how else to explain it. So I'm sorry. I'm just wondering if that was kind of like, did you have like an ego death experience or like a separation of yourself from that part of yourself? Or do you think it was like it was just kind of present in that moment and you somehow recognized it?
I think it was this, I think I was just present in the moment, but I didn't recognize it. I thought it was an evil entity. And it wasn't until my favorite psychic posted, I just met my shadow, and then he explained everything that happened, that I was like, well, that was my shadow, and oh crap, I just attacked it. And I feel like that's very evident to some personal issues that I have, like, you know what I mean? Um, but yeah. So it was, but it's weird because it's like it's a part of you, but it's not. It's its own entity. So.
Yeah, it's weird because I always go back and forth. If it is an ego of some kind, and I'm not trying to say it is or isn't because I didn't experience what you did, but I always try to recognize
Mm-hmm.
the ego as like, okay, it's a necessity, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's an evil fucking necessity because like it keeps you in line. It keeps you humble. It keeps you grounded, but at the same time, it makes you want the materialistic shit. It makes you want the the dopamine opposed to the serotonin for like you can that's how I've always perceived like it wants the short term addictive properties but doesn't want the full growth of long term longevity happiness and shit like longevity for yourself your soul and whatnot and yeah I don't even people are probably listening like what the hell is this guy talking about but it's like I
We're going deep.
yeah, this is as deep as you can probably get. I'm so fascinated because it's weird because I am deeply fascinated with psychology and like shit like that, but I'm also super into supernatural shit. So I feel like they're
Mm,
intertwined so deeply. I really do. I always feel like that. So like
yeah,
I see a therapist every couple of weeks. I don't even have like psychological things to see him at this point, but I love therapy because I love talking. I love discovering anything that about myself that's like I don't even recognize on a day to day basis, but maybe someone else. You know what I mean? So maybe I can piece anything together. So it's like, but when I'm in therapy,
totally.
I'll talk about personal past experiences, and I've had some mental things in the past that were like diagnosed as one thing, but through no practical medical or psychiatry or psychology practices, I was able to eliminate instantly as if they weren't even like a real event. And I mentioned that to my psychologist one day, and I was like, yeah, and he's like, he knows I'm into shit like this, and we have these conversations, but he was like, yeah, dude, psychologists don't really understand shit. And it was very bizarre hearing someone in his position say that because he's like, we can think we
Mm,
understand this, but we don't know anything. It's so rudimentary and like just crazy of how little we actually know about the mind. We like to think we're more intelligent as a species than we actually are. It's like, Graham Hancock?
mm. Uh, Probably. I'm bad with names.
Nah, no worries. He's like an author. He wrote like Fingerprints of the Gods, Magicians of the Gods. He's like an archaeologist, a journalist, investigator. I love the fucking guy. But he always says we're a species with the amnesia because we have
Mm,
amnesia to our past, to our lineage, to our heritage, to our past civilizations. I think that's evident in every sector of our lives though. I think we have amnesia when it comes to psychology and to self-reflection and I think the ego purposely is there to restrain us. I think it's kind of to get to the
yeah.
biblical sense. I think it's kind of like when you shed the ego, it's kind of like biting into the forbidden fruit. It's like you're not supposed to do that shit. Like you need that shit, but it's like do we? Like or is it a bad force telling us we
Oh,
need that? You know what I mean?
yeah. Okay. That blows my mind. I love that so much. Like, because that puts a different perspective onto me for like why I might have attacked it too. Like, why
Yeah.
I like, because it, like, maybe it is kind of like that forbidden fruit stuff where it's like, I don't know, like maybe like you do need it. It's a part of you, but at the same time, I don't know. You got to recognize what it is and put up your boundaries and whatever. I'm much more into like the integration of the ego than I am like destroying it. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
think it can evolve, and I've heard it's like a tool or a servant or whatever.
Yeah, I look at it as like, listen, it's a part of myself, and when I look at myself or other people, I don't look at someone who goes through something bad. I have siblings, and my siblings are dramatically younger than me. My oldest sibling near me is 10 years younger, and then it just keeps going. So they'll talk about how they're in elementary school, middle school, and they're like, oh, this guy, I'm getting picked on. I'm like, listen, don't ignore the fact you're getting picked on. Don't like that's a very real thing. Stand up for yourself. Do everything to de-escalate situations. If you have to, do whatever you have to do by any means. But you have to recognize that that person isn't being a dick to you because they're just a dick. They're being a dick because they have something in their own mind that is causing them, or someone else causing physical or mental, spiritual, emotional pain. It's leeching onto them and they're projecting to the people. That's the ego right there. The ego doesn't have a clear boundary of distinction between what you're going through and what other people are. So when you have a bully, that's not them just being a dick most of the time. It's their ego and their subconscious being like, oh, I'm being treated like shit, so I have to exert that back to the world. So it's like I think
Yeah.
that's a part where again, it's just this is I'm not a psychologist. I just find it so fascinating. I think that's a part where it's like a lot of shit gets written off as just simple stuff, black and white stuff, when in reality it's a rainbow. You know what I mean? Like when in reality there's an infinite amount of colors in that rainbow, and
Yeah,
we have to take the time and discipline to actually look at that shit. Aside from just taking the easy road
absolutely.
out, it's like, if you're really obese or something, you're really out of shape, you can get liposuction, or you could work your fucking ass off. You know what I mean? And get that by yourself, attain that naturally, get that discipline and whatnot. It's just it's very
Yeah.
bizarre. Coming from someone, I was 270 pounds when I was like 17. Like I've gone like it's just that's the only example I can think of. So I use my real life examples. It's like I could have got liposuction, I could have got my stomach staple, but no, I bit the fucking nail and I worked out. I died. I did. When you do things for yourself, the ego doesn't fucking matter. The ego gets pushed aside. The ego is telling you the easy way out. But you as a person, as the conscious, spiritual, powerful, infinite being that you probably are from my perception, you have to just realize, like, listen, I got tooth and nail this shit, like whatever it is. So I feel like if you saw the ego, I'm just wondering if there was something in your life at the time where it was like the ego was trying to really exert itself and solidify, and be like, hey, bitch, I'm in charge. No, like, bitch, I didn't mean to. No, you're not a bitch. You know what
That
I mean? That
that
sounded
was
bad. I'm
a
talking. I'm
little bit.
talking over my friends right now. I'm sorry. I'm like, but it's like the hey.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, bitch, I'm in charge. But it's like, nah, motherfucker, I'm
Yeah.
here. Like, this is my vessel. This is mine. So it's like, like you
Yeah.
said, it's a servant. I agree with that type of shit.
That's interesting that you say that, because that was exactly the vibe. Like that was it. Like when I say it was like observing me and it was being kind of like aggressive, like it was kind of like, I think it was a little curious, and I weirdly enough I almost felt like it had compassion as well. But the main thing was that it was just kind of like, oh hey, little pathetic mortal. Like it seriously almost felt like that. Like it was, yeah. So I love all of that though. Like yeah, it's like liposuction or really working through it. And I think that is the integration of the ego, and
Absolutely.
I'm sure it was painful, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, that's the thing about when you shed the ego, man. Like you have to like, it's like a PTSD type of thing. I've had conversations with this guy Jay I met, and he was a victim of sexual abuse as a child, very extensively to the point where it took over his life through his whole development. And I've had two conversations with this guy in extent, and he's an amazing individual. And what he did is he was in the MAPS program with Rick Doblin, and he did the MDMA assisted psychotherapy treatments for PTSD. And
wow.
man, yeah, it changed his whole life. But it didn't change his life as in like, oh, I'm better now. It changed his life in the way that he was confronted with his problems and his hardships, and he found a way to comprehend them in a way that's actually attainable, opposed to just suppressing or radically accepting. It's like you gotta be patient with yourself. I mean, people tend to be patient with other people and love other people, but it's like, man, if you don't have the foundations for yourself, it's crazy. Like if a plane's crashing,
Mm,
you're told to put the mask on you, then the person next to you, because if you don't put it on
yeah,
yourself first, you're both
yeah,
gonna fucking die. So it's like,
that's the only way. Yeah.
yeah, man, we gotta really. This took such a weird dive, but we really gotta find that shit in ourselves, man. Like because without that, our foundation. If you don't have a foundation, your building's gonna crumble. It's lunacy to
Mm,
just build something from the top and then work your way down. It doesn't work. It never will.
yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if anyone out there, man, if anyone out there is going through some shit, just put your head down, buckle up, and fucking do what you gotta do. Just know that tomorrow's gonna come, whether you're here or not. So you might as well work for being here. You know what I mean? Like sun will still arise no matter what. But without you, without the absence of yourself, without you giving 100%, people around you, man, their sun's not gonna shine the way it shined before. You know what I mean? To the strangers everywhere else in the world, it's not gonna mean shit. But to the people around you, man, I swear to God, it makes a big difference. Keep fighting, keep doing your shit, and maybe astral project. I don't know. Fuck it, do your thing, do your thing.
Yes.
Um, I'm sorry, I rant. Um,
No, I love it. I'm a ranter too.
it's it's
I
bizarre.
live for this.
Yeah, these are the conversations I like. I like talking about anything. I'm the type of guy who can go into I can go into I don't know. I can go anywhere. I was trying to think of an example. I can go in anywhere and talk about anything with anybody for any amount of time. But this shit is what I find really interesting because it's like it's that thing where I was talking about earlier, where it was like your personal experiences define who you are. You know what I mean? How you react to said experiences shape your perception of yourself in the world and shit. So for me, I can only put myself into scenarios, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I've really had some shit where I've had to really perspectivize things and find my inner self. Because if I didn't, man, it would be ugly. Be bad. I definitely would be having this conversation right now if I didn't. So it's like we all,
Wow, yeah.
and that's not a special. I'm not special. That's the thing. I'm not special than any other human who ever is or ever will live. It's just some people like. I'm on a metaphor roll right now. I'm gonna do one more, then I'm done with the metaphors. It's like caterpillars. They go into cocoons and shit to hope and become butterflies when they crack out of the cocoon. Some of them just get stillborn. Some of them die inside that cocoon. Some of them live their whole life in that cocoon and never awaken. That's how I perceive the world and people. It's like so many people in my life and everyone else's life they recognize the things where it'll be like this person just doesn't give a fuck. Whether they're 5 or 70, they just don't care and they probably never will. And it's goddamn shameful, man, because I don't want to learn how to live their lives, but we are given a crazy gift in this life, man. It's crazy. And if a lot of people just stay in that cocoon and never break free and they just die in it, and it breaks my heart. It really does. I'd rather go through a life full of misery and hardship for my whole life than never wake up, than just be cushioned. I
Yeah,
really would. It's
absolutely.
fucked, man.
Yeah,
But,
totally. Well, I think that's why we have been through hardship, though.
hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
Like, I think that's part of like the blueprint because we were like, there's no fucking way that I'm going to come to this plane of existence and not like be here and like learn and grow and experience. And so I feel like sometimes people sign up for that shit because they're like, wake me up, you know?
Hell yeah! I mean, that's how I perceive and think about outside of this incarnation that we're in right now. I think it's like and just for pretext, I was Catholic growing up. Around 7 or 8, I said this is ridiculous, but I held on to it for a while. Then once I hit like high school, I was like, I'm atheist. I'm done. I don't give a fuck. So I was atheist until I was like 18. When I was 18, bro, I got kicked in the face by a donkey with the realization of something crazy. But I was like, ever since then, I'm like, okay, this is how I see it. It's like, yeah, like we are just beings who don't have physical form, so we put ourselves in these kind of carnation simulations, whatever you want to call them, refer to them as. It's interchangeable. We put ourselves in here to deal with the struggle and shit, and it's obviously very easy for me to say that dealing with what I have because, comparatively, I wasn't abused as a kid. I didn't grow up, around gangs. I didn't grow up around people being bombed around me. I have my personal shit and that's it. So for me, it's like I didn't have cancer as a kid, so it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, get over it to everybody else, but I just like I can only speak for myself, and I think that's how like I chose to become this who I am. It's like I wanted to deal with some bullshit to be better off in the end. It's and appreciate life.
Yeah.
It's
totally.
And I'm sorry for making this podcast about me rambling. This was supposed to be about aliens. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
No, I feel like that ties in like that what you're saying right there though so well with like the fact that like I was attacked like brutally by this frat boy, you know what I mean? And it's like what came from that, like, so you might think, God, why? Like I almost died, but I astral projected. I had a near death experience and now it's like my life passion. And so it's like that whole Eve with the apple thing and like the dark duality, good and bad. It's like, is it really such a horrible thing that I was attacked like that? Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have my life's purpose right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, and then you take it a step further and get crazy and you're like, so that frat boy needed to do that. He played his part. We're all like on this stage. It's a theater. That's when you start looking at things really objectively,
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Man, as a complete stranger to you, whatever my word says, very proud and happy that you've came to these realizations. And as a fellow human, I'm very thankful that I'm able to hear the experience. Much love in that. Anyone listening, if they go through that, I assure you that just made a monumental difference in someone's mindset of some kind. That can be interchangeable with anything, but very kudos. That's very respectable. And
Yeah, thank
fuck
you.
yeah, man. Yeah, the vulnerability and stuff like that. It's hard. A lot of people put the blinders on and shit. But it's like, I don't know, man. I love talking about hardships because it's like not in the ego way. Because maybe it is the ego. I don't know. Maybe the ego's overtaking me. But man, I don't even. I'm blinded to it. But I feel like it's like, man, if you don't talk about that stuff, like you're doing a disservice in a way. Because you can come
Yeah.
to your own vendettas and rationales, but man, there's always someone around you who needs to hear that. But it's like I'm also a fond believer. Like I I like like David Goggins. I love that fucking guy. I like motivational stuff, especially when I'm working out. Like I hate running. I love lifting and stuff. I hate running. I despise it. So when I can't even push myself through it if I don't have something to go sometimes. So I'll throw on like just a video of someone screaming at me, telling me how their life was horrible and how they are where they are, and it gets me that extra mile or two, and I love it. But I feel like majority of the time in life you gotta be your own motivational speaker and shit, cause like if I listen to that video isn't impacting me right now to run, you know what I mean? But if I had it in myself to run, I'd run right now. So it's like you can have outside sources telling you what to do and what to think, but they're empty words at a certain point, because when the next hardship arises, is that quote you read
Yeah.
or is that book you read, is that going to stay with you as much as if you decided yourself? I don't think so, personally. I think you need to find that shit.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, totally.
it's beautiful, man. It's
It's a
beautiful.
journey.
Fuck
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I feel like that. I
absolutely.
feel like that might connect to aliens too in a way. Hear me out. I'm a Bridget. I think that these beings are.
Literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think these beings are just super, super advanced. We all unanimously agree upon the fact they're technologically advanced and shit. But I think it goes back to that amnesia. We're a species with amnesia. I think we're a species with tunnel vision when it comes to innovation and advancements. I think, oh yeah, these aliens can, oh yeah, they can fly anywhere they want. That's awesome. You know what else they could probably do? Probably anything they fucking put their minds to. You know what I mean? Like we're focused on these little spacecrafts and shit. What about the beings
Yeah.
inside of those things, bro? Like,
Yeah.
what about those
Absolutely.
things? Yeah.
Like they're definitely not tripping over who voted for Trump or Biden. Like I'll
Yeah,
just
yeah,
put it
yeah,
that way.
yeah.
Like that's below where we are right now as a species. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But like definitely as like a alien advanced species building these anti-gravity crafts or whatever, they're definitely not worried about the things we are
No,
at all.
absolutely not. And I mean, there's a obviously I say evidence as if it's like a. I think it's evidence because I don't give a fuck what mainstream narratives claim as evidence because we know a lot of people know what evidence means to a lot of people. There's evidence out there in actual firsthand claims that some beings are telepathically able to communicate. You and your boyfriend said you say your boyfriend was trying to communicate with the beings on when you saw him in the desert in the is it a desert? I don't even know what the hell Nevada is. It's a
Yeah,
desert,
it's a
right?
desert.
All right, word. I'm not a
Yeah,
geography type of guy.
me neither.
So in the desert, so like that's merit. We can go back to Stephen Greer with his C5 protocols, Close Encounters 5 protocols. I've preached about that guy so much. I love that dude, and
I love him too, dude.
so crazy. I would love more than anything to go on one of those retreats. Oh my god.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
So
Let's
crazy.
start a group.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
do it.
See, I tried doing that on Facebook
Okay.
because I watched all Serious Unacknowledged and then the CE5 one. The CE5 one was not the best for me. Serious and Acknowledged are the two of the greatest documentaries I've ever seen in my life, though. But the CE5, he says like, oh yeah, you can join our group and you can find groups in your area. So I was like, oh, I'll just go on Facebook. There's everything on Facebook. It's a lot of
Mhm.
crazy people though. It's a lot of people who are out there, like very, very like charlatan type of people. They're like, oh yeah, I host these meetings, but you gotta do this and this, and I'm like, dude, like, you're just a person. Like, let's just meet up. We'll figure it out. But you're not telling me what to wear and what is that about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it becomes like they started the group for the ego, like for the control,
yeah, man.
versus like someone like you who's like, dude, let's go to this thing.
Yeah, like yeah, fuck yeah. It's what was I saying though? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the telepathic shit. He summons UFOs based on collective group meditation. So that
Mm,
alone, if these beings are truly able to pick up on that, whether it's a frequency, whether it's a Akashic record hive mind type of thing, whether it's anything, they're able to pick up on that and come exactly where they're being summoned in a sense. It's very
yeah,
fucking weird.
absolutely. Yeah.
So they got something going on spiritually, mentally, intellectually. They got something going on that's just we can't understand.
We we absolutely underestimate the complete and total power of other dimensions and realms and spirituality and like the ethereal and astral realms. We're so third dimensionally focused, and I feel like that may be programmed, that may have been intentional. But for example, it's like hot topic right now, like Russia, for example. I've been following their science because they're very interested in harvesting energy from the ether realm. So they believe that they do. They believe that. And so like a lot of anyway, so they've literally they claim, and like this is all very hidden stuff, obviously, but they claim that they can actually produce fuel and energetic substance that can be used from the etherical realms. And it's like I don't remember. I read all about it. I can't remember exactly how it's harvested, but they don't believe that etheric energy is pseudoscience, whereas the U.S., I think, in an attempt to keep the people ignorant, has stamped a giant pseudoscience on ether energy. And my favorite scientist is Wilhelm Reich, and he basically, essentially, he figured out how to harvest this energy and could run engines off of biological energy. And I've actually made some of his devices because I'm obsessed with him. But
for myself and the
it's
audience,
real.
can you explain what ether energy is? Because I'm not aware of it. I assume it's like something like otherworldly of some kind, but I'm not sure what that is.
So to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what it is either. I do know that so basically it's harvesting or summoning energy from another realm or dimension, specifically the ethereal dimension. So for example, when I was looking up I left my notes over there, but when I was looking up the model for the spaceship that I had seen, so I could give kind of an example. So this was the Hannibus, I think I called it. I can't remember. But that specific model, the Germans in the, Vril society, all of that stuff, they believed that, how they powered it, they claimed that how they powered those anti-gravity machines was from something called the Black Sun, which was like antimatter, like an antimatter energy that was always there. And this was essentially coming from the ethereal realm. And so nowadays, if you look up like the Black Sun, it's a very ancient symbol, but nowadays it's associated with Nazis because of the Nazis were using that ancient ideology and to power their UFOs and stuff. But so there's it's something within the realm of like antimatter and dark matter, where there's like this literally other realm where you can channel energy from. And the Russians are very interested in that science. And there was even German scientists in the US that was interested in it. And of course, they mysteriously died in prison. And like Wilhelm Reich, he died in prison. It's like he clearly, to me, was murdered by the government. But the US likes to stamp a big old pseudoscience. It's not real, but I think it is.
Fuck yeah. Well, I'm gonna look into that for sure, because that's fucking crazy. You don't have to convince me that the Nazis were doing weird shit. I mean, the Thule and the Vril societies with the friggin' witches and the seances they conduct. That is a very underreported thing about the Nazis, that Hitler and his higher ups in the Reich were literally practicing. Not really Hitler as much. He was just kind of off like drugs historically for the most of it. He was just really on cocaine and amphetamines and meth, from what I've heard. But the people around him were like dead serious about the fact that they were doing seances and summoning demons and doing drugs and talk. Like, very weird. Very weird. It gets overshadowed, of course, by the overtaking of the world. Understandably, I guess. Like that, I guess. But yeah, man. They had some weird shit happening for sure.
Yeah. That's definitely something to look into, like Russian science with ether energy. And it would be interesting to see if like that stuff was being censored, especially now with like what's going on with Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, I'm sure.
But
You can be assured that it is. Yeah. If we know about it, then yeah, it's being censored. That's a rule of thumb for me, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is random. You see,
Yeah.
DuckDuckGo. They said they're gonna censor misinformation now, starting immediately.
Yeah, they sold out a few years ago, I guess. They're like, yeah, I don't know if they're like owned by Google now or the ABC company or whatever, but
It's a shame. It's a shame. Yeah, I always
I
look at it
know.
as, if people are censoring information, it's usually you're on the right path. It's usually a good
Absolutely.
sign. Yeah.
You don't censor information. You can correct information. You can be like, oh, hey, by the way, that's not true because of this. But you're not gonna like deplatform people and like, silence people. And like at that point, it's like you're cutting out a man's tongue because you're afraid of what he has to say. And if that's not common knowledge to you or obvious, then I can't help you.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. Yeah, I feel like the people in charge of these things, like, they don't even have a consciousness anymore. It's just all ego. I think that's what happens. Like, you just fully get submerged by that force within yourself, or externally, maybe even in their cases. But
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
bizarre.
Like people like Fauci, it's
Oh, don't get me
like I don't mean to
started.
sound dramatic, but I'm like, do you have a soul? Like, I'm thinking about those puppy experiments.
Oh
Not
my
happy.
god! Listen, I've recommended like 8 books and people so far. If this one thing people look into the real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That book is a mind fuck.
I
Oh,
bet.
oh
I
my
bet.
god. I mean, that was the type of book where I had it on Audible, because when I'm working, I'm usually alone most of the day, so I just listen to audiobooks and podcasts and whatnot. So I had the book, and dude, I just stopped listening to it midday one day. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is too heavy. Like, it is a rude
Dude,
awakening.
it's so heavy. It's so heavy. It's like, how could he have been in charge of the AIDS epidemic
Oh,
as well? Like, how? Like, we're so off topic now, but
yeah. Don't worry. Let's rein it back in. Fuck, let's rein it back in. Okay, so
yeah.
for the 19th time, we're talking astral projections. So, man, if I did timestamps in these videos, like, if I did, this would be the biggest mess ever. Like, I'm so fortunate I don't give a shit about that. Um, believe it or not, I've actually gotten better with sidetracking. I know it does not seem it, but if you look at my older videos, it is not even coherent thoughts. Like, it's not. One sentence will be interrupted by another thought, and it'll just keep going. So, believe it or not, there's been progress made. But, okay, so you had the first experience that you mentioned thus far with you in the near death experience one. Then you had the stomach ulcer with your friend that in the hospital. Then you had the third one where you met your ego, try to fight that bitch, which I respect, first of all. But yeah, okay. Is
Thank
there
you.
any other like monumental ones that are like that stand out? You feel like should be kind of shared or discussed, or is it kind of just like, I don't know, like if some of these are just passed off as like ordinary experiences, or if they're all crazy?
Well, like, let me think about it. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but there was a time this time. So this whole event leaded up to like with a bunch of really strange synchronicity. So this was November 19th, 2019. And I want to say that's when it was. And basically, I'll just go through it really quickly. I was planning to go see the guy I was seeing at the time. I was planning to, and this was in Salt Lake City, so he lives up by like in the center of the city. I'm super like rich kid. I like love the guy. Whatever. We're not seeing each other anymore. Anyway, sidetrack. But
Fuck that guy. But yeah.
no, he's a nice guy. But anyway, so I'm on my way. I'm planning to go see this guy, but first I'm like, I'm going to go see my friend Lolly. She's like working at this burlesque bar, and so I was going to go see her, and then I was going to go perform comedy because I do stand-up comedy sometimes. And after that, I was going to go see this guy. So I go to the burlesque place, and after my friend performs, she did awesome, and she comes to talk to me, and all of a sudden, and she never does this, but all of a sudden she was just very serious, and she was like, "Do not go tonight." Like, she's just an intuitive witchy bitch, and she's like, "Don't go." And I'm just like, like I feel in my heart what you're saying, but I'm so stubborn. It's that ego, So I go to comedy and everything's going well. I perform and it all goes good. And then this other guy performs and In the middle of this guy's performance, everybody's phones go off with an Amber Alert, and the Amber Alert triggers me. I don't use the word trigger very often, but the Amber Alert, it's like eerie for me. Like I literally feel like it's like being used to lower human consciousness or something. And I know that it's like, oh, it's to help find children, and that's oftentimes true. But anyway, the sound just really threw me off. So despite all of these things telling me like, stop, don't go tonight, I continued on my way and I'm driving. And then this car came out from this hotel room and it just swerved out in front of me. And I only had one headlight and I had to slam on my brakes. So my phone went flying. I didn't know where my phone was. And I was like, my heart's going crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I almost ran into this car. He must have realized that he was intoxicated or something. So he pulled back into the hotel. So anyway, after that, I'm still just kind of like not really stable. I'm like, oh my gosh, like something is telling me not to go. I just could feel something huge. And I went anyway. I showed up and I arrived and we hung out and talked, and we're talking on the balcony, and a car with one headlight drives by. And that's kind of like my last, like, I swear it was like my last warning. It was like, something is not right here. And I ignored it all and I went to bed. And about 2 hours later, it was maybe like 4 a.m. 2 or 3 hours later, it's like 4 a.m. And I was watching myself as a spirit sleeping. And I remember, because I was astral projecting, I guess. And I remember asking myself, I was like, something was like, are you going to be afraid or not? Like, are you going to choose to be afraid? And I remember looking at myself and thinking, I'm going to be afraid. And then I went back into my body and the alarms went off and like somebody had started a fire in the building. So like literally it was just like, and like,
As you get back
I don't
in
do
your
well.
body, that happens?
As I get back in my body, I wake up a second before the lights go off. Like the lights, I say the lights because the alarms, like the alarm in the room in the apartment building had like flashing lights.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that I said, I sat up and I said, help me. That was the first thing I said. I was just like, help me. Like I just was pure panic. And like the crazy thing is like, we got out of the building okay. Somebody had like, anyway, we all got out of the building okay. And I ended up going home, but I was not okay after that. I was mentally not okay. And it was just crazy to me because I remember choosing to be afraid. I consciously chose it before I woke up. Yeah. So that would be the only other significant one.
So what do you think the choice was about? Like, was he afraid, like, about the fire alarm? Do you think the fire alarm was a secondary reaction to what you chose?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that's just like a deep, insightful question because I think it was something bigger. So I kind of had, because of this event, a knowing, and that's the only way that I can put it. It was a knowing that something globally was about to happen. Because for the rest of November and December, I was literally like insane. Like I was like calling my mom up and being like, we need to recycle. Like we got to save the planet. Like I was like losing my mind. I just could feel that there was this huge global thing happening. And of course, my favorite psychic and several other psychics that I follow were like, something big is coming for January, like a global thing. And if you know, like Sylvia Brown, she's one of my favorite psychics. She wrote about in her book, I can't remember the name of the book, but she wrote this book in 1996. And she said, in the year 2020, there will be a global pandemic that will leave as fast as it came, and it will affect the respiratory systems. And then in 10 years later, it will come back a little bit. She wrote that in 1996. And so anyway, I guess I just say that because it's like I was following psychics that knew. And I feel like this was an event in my life that was showing me like this is the type of panic and fear that is going to be projected throughout the world for 2020, basically.
That's some Nostradamus type of shit on her behalf. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Have you ever... just a random question. Have you ever asked any of these psychics personally about astral projecting in the astral realm and got their opinion on it? Like, Because I wonder if that's how like mediums and psychics kind of perceived. I know a I know a medium. I don't know any psychics, but I know a medium, and she like I've never asked her, but I'm gonna ask her as soon as I see her next time about this. Because I'm mad curious now.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like if I was a working medium or psychic, that's how I would do it. I would, oh, you know what? There is one girl. Her name is Lori Ladd, and she does do that to connect with people's star families and like their alien connections. So she'll project, and then she'll see like what she's intending to see. So she can see the astral realm is infinite. So it's outside of time. So you can do whatever. It's a whole untapped field.
Fuck man, you talking about alien
Mm,
families and shit. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even think about that. I'm talking about the connective like minds. You're talking about like yeah, that's nuts, man. That makes sense. I mean, we're all in this thing together, I guess. That's crazy.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
So I'm so good. Do you like remember the voice that you heard? Like, was it like a familiar voice to you when it told you to make the choice, or was it like?
So you know what? I think it's my higher self because it is like my voice. Like when I saw my shadow and something was like, this is going to be a little bit scary. And I was like, I think that's my guides. Like, honestly, I think it's probably just me. Like, I think it's just like me outside of time that's aware of what's going on, talking to the unconscious me. So I think in that moment when it was asking, like, do you choose to be afraid or not? Like, I think that was me as well.
Yeah, that's what I
Just
was wondering.
asking.
I was wondering if it was the same type of voice and feeling as the previous one you heard, but in the last experience. So I was trying to see if it was kind of the same thing or not, or for.
It was, yeah,
Damn,
yeah.
bro. So it's either your highest self or sorry, away from the mic here. It's either your highest self or you're definitely just fucking you got something or someone on your side just looking out.
Yeah, totally.
Damn, bro, that's bizarre. That's bizarre. Are you
Hmm.
like a believer in like the like spirit guides, guardian angels, or whatever term for it or anything like that, or is you just kind of like, how do
Yeah.
yeah?
I mean, I haven't experienced it myself, but I'm a believer. I think it's real. Totally. I would trust anybody who said, not anybody, but I would trust someone who said, that they experienced that. But personally, it's interesting because I have not experienced it. I think that's because even though I'm so open and want to connect, I'm also very like stubbornly independent and closed off. Like I don't want to hear anybody else's advice on my life unless I'm asking, but
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, unsolicited shit's definitely understandable. That's just so bizarre, man. It's so fascinating. This is all everything we've discussed to me is so fascinating. I hope it is to the audience as well. But to me, I'm just like Jesus. Like I'm just gonna when this is over, I'm going to bed in a little bit when this is over. I'm just gonna before that I'm just gonna fucking think about this shit for the next week or two. This is crazy, man. This
right?
is
Yeah, thank you
crazy.
so much for like talking with me about this because
Oh
it's
yeah,
like it's so
absolutely,
nice.
absolutely. I don't want to keep you hostage either. I don't want to keep going. I've got as much time as you want, so if you want to wrap it up, I'm all for it. If not, I don't want to keep
Yeah.
you going. I just realized it's
Well,
been almost 3.5 hours. I didn't realize that. So whatever
dude,
you feel like
yes.
doing, man.
No, I love it. Like honestly, real talk, like I live for this stuff. Like I could talk all night. Um I do think I'm gonna wrap it up because my boyfriend is on his way. I'm at my mom's right now, so he's
Yeah,
gonna
no worries.
pick me up and yeah, but so I better pack. But I like literally anytime I'm so down to talk about this stuff. So I appreciate it a lot for having me on.
My pleasure. I'd love to do this again in the future and shit. If you if you ever stumble upon more diary entries or journal from your family in the past or whatnot, anything, love to hear
Yeah.
shit like that. Hell yeah. Do you want to show anything out like Instagram, anything like that? Do you want people to follow you or check out or anything like that?
Oh, dude, I wish I would have come prepared, but I'm like not even on the internet. I have a TikTok. I could share that. Is that weird?
Hell yeah,
Sharing
no. You
TikTok?
say it and then just message me the link to it as well, and I'll put it in the show notes and shit.
Okay. So you can follow me on TikTok. It's Jessie Jesi is sensitive. I thought that was funny. Jessie is sensitive on TikTok, and yeah. Let's see. I'll message you that then and
Absolutely. Hell yeah.
share that. Yeah. Thanks for shouting me out.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for having the conversation in the first place. Hell yeah. Well, guys, and girls, thank you all for listening. I appreciate it as always. I hope my rambling didn't overshadow the crazy personal experiences here. But yeah, thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it. And yeah, just keep killing life, keep doing your fucking thing, and stay healthy and shit. You know, one love. Hell yeah. All right. Peace out, guys. Thank you.